Chapter 864. I understand the situation you're talking about, but the special situation you're talking about has to be under the condition that the injured person is still conscious. That is to say, the person must be conscious. But now, Qian Sun's soul has been completely destroyed, and she is on the verge of dispersing. If she is in her human form, the amount of energy she consumes will be less. But once she returns to her original form, I'm afraid that the nutrients she can absorb will not be enough for her body to consume, and it will further consume the last bit of vitality she has left. Zhu Moxie said softly. If that's the case, could it be that even you are helpless? Mei Shui Yin said worriedly. My cultivation is still too shallow. I really don't have a good idea, but there will always be a way. Jun Moxie said solemnly. The only thing I can do now is to use the Hong Meng purple qi to prolong her life and maintain her vitality. But as long as her vitality is not extinguished, there will be a turn for the better sooner or later. I believe that when I reach the 6th or 7th level, there will definitely be a way. You've also cultivated in the Hongjun Pagoda for so long. Do you still not have enough confidence in this treasure? Jun Moxie had great confidence in the Hongjun Pagoda. The pills concocted from the 9th level of the Hongjun Pagoda could even make a mortal become an immortal immediately. With the means of the immortals, bringing the dead back to life was a small matter. Although Qian Sun's injuries were not light, in the eyes of the immortals, it might not be a big deal. I believe you, Mei Shuiyin said softly. But you're in such a dangerous situation now. How do you plan to deal with it? Jun Moxie floated to the front of Qian Sun and placed his palm on her back. Once again, he channeled the Hong Meng purple qi into her to prolong her life. He frowned as he considered. After thinking for a long time, he finally smiled and said, Against these experts from the Holy Lands, I only have one word, kill. Kill. But you're only a level 3 venerable now. There were 30 to 40 enemies, and the weakest among them was a level 2 or 3 venerable. There are quite a few saints among them, and there are also 3 holy emperors holding the line. If my guess is correct, the Heaven Saint Palace has sent at least 3 protectors with Xiao Ying's arrival. How are you going to kill him? With their strength, even if they just stood there and let you kill them, you might not be able to kill them. This is a fact, an undeniable fact. Mei Shuiyin said worriedly. Our strength is more than enough to deal with normal situations. But compared to these people in front of us, we are too weak. Although you've successfully stirred up this storm, you don't have enough strength to deal with the consequences of stirring up this storm. In my opinion, the only thing you can do now is to avoid the storm. Lay low for a while. Jun Moxie rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. Big sister, you said it yourself. I was the one who stirred up this storm. Now, the storm is gathering, and I, the initiator of all this, have to hide? This is too depressing. Again, do you have the ability to deal with the consequences? Since you don't have the ability, what else do you want? What else can I do? Mei Shuiyin rolled her eyes at him. I won't deny it if we fight them head-on, but we can assassinate them. Jun Moxie smiled strangely. If it's assassination, I have the confidence to kill anyone below the Holy Emperor level. As for the experts above the Holy Emperor level, we may not be able to assassinate them, but that doesn't mean that no one can take care of them. In the past, this sentence might have had some meaning, but now, in this world, the 3 Holy Lands have been eliminating dissidents for the past 10,000 years. All the forces that were originally qualified to compete with them have long been wiped out. They don't even have enemies, so what force or power in this world can deal with them? Mei Shuiyin was taken aback by her unintentional words. This was because her unintentional words contained a terrifying truth. The 3 Holy Lands had no enemies. All the enemies had been eliminated by the 3 Holy Lands over the long years. Basically, they had vanished into thin air, and not even a single descendant had been passed down 10,000 years. For a whole 10,000 years, they had been eliminating their opponents. Mei Shuiyin was suddenly frightened by her own words. Her hair stood on end, and her hair stood on end. If that's the case, isn't the Tian Fa forest the last power that can contend against them? and also the last target that they want to destroy? There are no absolutes in this world. There are only things that you can't think of, and there is absolutely nothing that you can't do. As long as you have the heart to look for it, there are still people with strength, June Moxie said mysteriously. For example, what about the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters? I knew it. Since you've been planning all this in the dark, you must have something to rely on. But, Emosia, I have to warn you. Even if the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters makes a move against the 3 Holy Lands, it is only his personal wish. Because we don't have the qualifications to go against the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. We don't even have the right to talk to them on equal terms. Mei Shuiyan's pretty face was heavy. Could it be that you only wish to add fuel to the fire and watch from the sidelines in this storm? If that's the case, I will support you. But with your character, will you be willing to do so? June Moxie was stunned. Mei Shuiyan's words had hit him where it hurt the most. All along, he had been used to fighting enemies who were stronger than him. As June Dashao's cultivation improved, his opponents also became stronger and stronger. This caused him to completely lose the qualifications to face them head-on. He had no choice but to use all the methods he could to deal with them, be it putting on airs, using empty tactics, or using false pretenses to intimidate others, or framing others. These methods were effective and even had great results. But ever since he had started his cultivation, how many times did he have to face them head-on? If he wanted to survive in this chaotic world where strength reigned supreme and where no one dared to provoke him, all of this had to be built on a foundation. Strength. A bloody battle. A show of power. A battle that shook the world. Only by establishing his absolute authority was the best way to eliminate future troubles. Otherwise, if they lost without knowing why, how would they accept it? Naturally, they would come looking for trouble again and again. This time, he could make use of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters by chance. But what about the next time? The time after that? Could it be that he was going to continue like this? You're right. We really can't just sit and watch from the sidelines. Jun Mo Xie's face turned gloomy as he spoke slowly, word by word. Since you've decided to fight, then let's fight. I believe that as long as we gather all the strength of Tian Fa, no matter what, there will still be room to maneuver. Mei Shuiyan said. No. Jun Moxie shook his head slowly. No? Could it be that you have other ideas? Mei Shuiyan was stunned. Right now, the only feasible method is to gather the seniors of Tian Fa and fight them head-on, regardless of success or failure. We must make the 3 Holy Lands pay the heaviest price. The only way is to make them feel pain. Only then will they realize that provoking us will not end well. Otherwise, just Chrysanthemum City alone is not enough for us to pass. Mei Shuiyan paused and said, As for the 2 of us, although our current strength is not weak, we are still not a match for the Holy Emperor, unless we can greatly increase our strength in one night. But that kind of thing has never happened since ancient times. Who says there isn't? Jun Moxie said lightly. Since ancient times, it has never happened, but it does not mean that I don't have it. I've said it before, in this world, there are only things that can't be imagined, but there are definitely things that can't be done. His eyes slowly landed on that huge heaven-earth spirit vein, and a trace of madness flashed in his eyes. You have it. Mei Shuiyan had never imagined that the moment she said that, she would actually hear such an unexpected and far-fetched answer. We really do have a way to greatly increase our strength in one night. But with gains comes risks, and this method is extremely risky. And it's also a little wasteful. Jun Moxie said slowly. He slowly stroked the heaven-earth spirit vein and said, The inside of this thing is actually hollow. The reason why the heaven-earth spirit vein is formed is because in a specific sealed place with abundant spiritual energy, the hollow greenstone milk is first produced. He smiled faintly. After the hollow greenstone milk is produced, it is an extremely miraculous heaven and earth spirit herb. Once the fated person consumes it, it is enough to bring the dead back to life and greatly increase their strength. If no one discovers it for a long time, the hollow greenstone milk will accumulate. Then, the outer layer of the hollow greenstone milk will gradually harden and petrify. In fact, it is the initial layer of the hollow greenstone milk that is eliminated and expelled. After tens of thousands of years of accumulation, it will become the heaven-earth immortal milk. Heaven-earth immortal milk? Mei Shuiyin was shocked. She had heard of the hollow greenstone milk before, but she had never heard of the term heaven-earth immortal milk. Because the hollow greenstone milk alone was already a miraculous treasure that was hard to find in this world. One drop, even just one drop, could bring a person back to life. One drop was enough to break through any bottleneck of a Xian cultivator and increase their strength by more than 100 years. Unexpectedly, above the hollow greenstone milk, there was still the heaven-earth immortal milk. Shocking, absolutely shocking. But the shock was not over yet. June Moxie continued slowly. After a long time, the formation of the heaven-earth immortal milk is equivalent to a large-scale spirit-gathering formation. It no longer passively absorbs the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth, but it actively attracts the spiritual energy. As the spiritual energy becomes denser, the total amount of the heaven-earth immortal milk will also increase. The outer layer of the heaven-earth immortal milk will also reach the peak of hardness. It will only increase in volume, but not in hardness. And this increase in volume starts from the inside. In other words, it will expel the impurities that are not qualified. Those impurities will then form this thing in front of us. June Moxie patted the huge heaven-earth spirit vein as he sighed with emotion. And when the outer layer is about 3 feet long, the heaven-earth spirit vein is considered to have formed. The most magical thing about this thing is that no matter where it is placed, it will immediately become a feng shui treasure land that cultivators dream of. A heaven-earth spirit vein of 3 feet is enough to turn an entire mountain range into a heaven and earth scenic spot, a paradise. And as the heaven-earth spirit vein continues to grow, the quality of the heaven-earth immortal milk contained within the spirit vein will continue to increase. The longer it lasts, the higher the quality. When it reaches a certain age, it will transform into the rarer golden jade fluid. According to legend, any heaven-earth spirit vein that can produce golden jade fluid must be at least 10 feet long. A bitter smile appeared on June Moxie's face. He patted the spirit vein under him and said to Mei Shuiyin, "And this heaven-earth spirit vein under us is at least 400 to 500 feet long. Do you know what this means?" "What?" Mei Shuiyin suddenly interrupted June Moxie's words in extreme shock. She jumped up and screamed at June Moxie with a posture that was completely out of character. "This big rock that I've been sleeping on is the heaven-earth spirit vein? The one that contains a divine item like the golden jade fluid. Heaven and earth spirit vein?" Mei Shuiyin's eyes widened as she looked at June Moxie and held her breath, waiting for his answer. "Yes, this thing in front of us is an extremely complete heaven-earth spirit vein, and it's the kind that far exceeds the age limit of the golden jade fluid. I believe that just one drop of the thing inside can allow an ordinary person who has never practiced Xianqi to soar all the way to the supreme level. And this is only the most conservative estimate." June Moxie answered Mei Shuiyin's words with absolute certainty. He rolled his eyes and said, "How do you think your cultivation can increase so quickly? A little Martin that has never had a grade has rushed all the way to the first level of the Venerable One in just 2 months? I believe that no cultivation technique can be so abnormal, right? Of course, the art of unlocking heaven's fortune is one of the reasons, and the dense spiritual chi inside is another. But the biggest reason is that I placed you on this from the beginning, so that it can cleanse your marrow at all times. Basically, every time you sleep, your physique will evolve because of it. Especially when you sit on this to cultivate, you can get twice the results with half the effort, or even several times the results with half the effort." Mei Shuiyin's body swayed, and she groaned, holding her forehead with one hand. "Otherwise, why do you think I didn't give you bedding? Do you think I'm such an inconsiderate person?" June Moxie rolled his eyes and continued to complain. "Now that your cultivation has succeeded, the first thing you do is to bully me. You kicked me there, and you even kicked me so many times. Jun Dashao felt that his luck was bad. He didn't have this thing when he cultivated, which caused him to lower his head in front of this girl. But just as he finished speaking, he saw Mei Shuyin groan softly. Her eyelids rolled, and her body softly fell to the ground. She had fainted. This surprise was too big, so big that even Mei Shuyin couldn't bear it. It can't be. Why is her mental endurance so weak? Jun Moxie said in shock. Jun Dashao had obviously underestimated the news that he had released. In fact, only a person like him, who sat on a mountain of treasures, didn't think much of it. This kind of thing, if it was anyone else, they would faint. Even if a real immortal who had descended to the mortal world heard and saw this thing, his eyes would roll back, and his body would twitch and faint, because this was really not something that ordinary people could see. Chapter 865. After a long while, Mei Shuyin slowly woke up. After waking up, she stared at the heaven and earth spirit vein motionlessly. She stretched out her small, jade-like hand and carefully stroked the huge stone, as if she was afraid that it would break if she used too much strength. Don't worry, it's fine. I believe that even if you attack it with all your strength, it won't break. In fact, not even the slightest bit of stone chips will fall off. Jun Mo Xie laughed, as he reminded. Don't talk. Mei Shuyin glared at him and scolded him. Then, she was immersed in this great happiness. Her beautiful eyes curved into crescent moons. She said dreamily, Mo Xie, how many years will it take for such a large heaven and earth spirit vein to form? How many years? I have to calculate. Jun Moxie counted on his fingers. Usually it takes tens of thousands of years to form the hollow, turquoise milk. When the hollow turquoise milk is completely transformed into heaven-earth immortal milk, I'm afraid it will take another hundreds of thousands of years. As for the golden jade fluid, it will take at least 1,000,000 years. This one in front of us is 40 to 50 feet long. I'm afraid it's been 5 to 6 million years. 5 to 6 million, 10,000 years. Mei Shuyin's mouth was wide open. She was suffocating. 5 to 6 million years. How long was that? This was simply unimaginable. Perhaps it will take a little longer. My calculation method is only a rough estimate. So, there will always be some error. But the error won't be too big. It should be around a few 100,000 years. Jun Mo Xie said in a deep voice. According to what you're saying, doesn't that mean that even a little powder from this big stone is a panacea for healing? Mei Shuyin asked anxiously. Yes, it is. Moreover, it's a sacred medicine that ordinary people can't afford, because even some of its powder is equivalent to the highest grade of void green spiritual milk. This is already the most conservative way to put it. Jun Moxie nodded his head honestly and made a face. Heavens, wahaha! At this moment, Mei Shuyan's usual dignified demeanor had disappeared. She jumped and sang for a while, then suddenly grabbed Jun Mo Xie's collar and shook him crazily. Then, she punched Jun Mo Xie's stomach and sent him flying. However, Mei Shuyan didn't let him go. She chased after him and started to beat him up. She beat him until he felt like porcelain, and she felt like she was having a good time. Jun Dashao could not care about the top, the bottom, the front, or the back. He could not care about the head, but he could not care about the legs. He screamed. In his heart, he was filled with regret. What kind of logic is this? I didn't think that this quiet girl would be so explosive when she gets excited to a certain extent. Even to vent the excitement in her heart, she used a method of beating people up. Fortunately, his cultivation was higher than hers. Otherwise, wouldn't he be beaten to a pulp? She really doesn't have any tricks. Every punch hits the flesh. I'm afraid even the rumored S&M is not as good as this. My God, if you said that you wanted to beat someone up to vent the anger in your chest, that was absolutely understandable. But if you wanted to beat someone up to vent the joy in your heart when you were extremely happy, wasn't that a little too inconceivable? Jun Dashao covered his pretty face and covered his crotch. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. One was to see people, and the other was to see his lover. Apart from these two places, the rest would be given away one by one. It's up to you. Finally, Mei Shuiyan's excitement slowly calmed down after the intense venting. She gradually slowed down the frequency of her attacks until she stopped. She said with some embarrassment, Mo, Xie, are you all right? Jun Dashao, who was in pain all over his body, resisted the urge to cry out loud. He put down his hands and revealed a face that looked like half a pig's head. He opened his mouth and cried, Sister, look at me. Do I look like I'm okay? But you don't look like you're okay. At least you can talk. Mei Shuiyan said excitedly. Quick, tell me more about that. Golden jade fluid. It's amazing, isn't it? I don't know. What if you hit people again? I promise I won't hit people. I don't believe you. Then how can you believe me? Unless you let me into the bridal room tonight. You? Damn it. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam. After another round of beating, Jun Dashao, who had turned into a pig's head, became completely obedient. However, both of them knew very well that Mei Shuiyan's beating was just to vent the ecstasy in her heart. To young Master Jun, whose skin was coarse and flesh was stronger than hers, it was completely insignificant after a long time. Both of them calmed down after the intense exercise. Mei Shuiyan looked a little embarrassed. She asked in a low voice, Mo Xie, are you planning to open it and let us drink that golden jade fluid to increase our strength and deal with the terrible situation before us? Yes, that's my plan, but I'm still a little hesitant. Jun Moxie rubbed his face. The bruises on his face quickly disappeared when he rubbed them with his palms. What are you hesitating about? Are you afraid of wasting God's gift? Mei Shuiyan asked. It would be a great sin to waste such a divine item. That's not it. Good things should be used. So what if it's all wasted? I'm just not sure if we can withstand the effect of a drop of golden jade fluid with our cultivation. After all, that thing contains the essence of heaven and earth for more than 1,000,000 years. Jun Mo Xie frowned and said, also, this golden jade fluid is the only thing that doesn't need to be refined to be consumed directly. That thing doesn't need to be enhanced through alchemy at all. It can be used directly to bring out its full effects. But from another point of view, that thing can't be used as medicine to disperse and harmonize its strong medicinal power. So it can be said to be the most overbearing thing in the world. Once the user can't withstand it, there's no other way but to turn into ashes. No elixir can alleviate it all. What if I can withstand it? Will my strength be greatly improved? Mei Shuiyan asked curiously. It's not just a great improvement. As long as we can withstand the medicinal power and successfully refine and absorb it, we can directly reach the heavens. Even the most conservative estimate is that we can directly go from the venerable stage to the level of the Holy Emperor, or even higher. Jun Mo Xie said slowly. This thing, the stronger the user is, the greater the effect after using it. It's only because we both cultivate the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, the #1 cultivation technique in the world, that I came up with this idea. If it's someone else, as long as they don't practice the cultivation, not our kind of cultivation method, even the current Holy Emperor would immediately explode and turn into ashes after taking a drop of the golden jade fluid. So overbearing. Mei Shuiyan's eyes widened in shock. Seeing that she was a little excited again, Jun Dashao couldn't help but shrink back a little. He quietly moved his body away. He then continued, The above is my personal judgment, and it's more or less the same. Unfortunately, the biggest problem now is there's quite a lot of golden jade fluid in here, at least 10 million drops. We only need 1 drop each at most. Once it's opened, how are we going to seal the rest? If we leave it alone, I'm afraid it will all melt into the air. That would be a real waste of God's gift. This is the most serious problem right now. What if we find a few jade bottles to store it in? Mei Shuiyan's eyes darted around as she actively came up with a plan. If we could store it, I wouldn't have to worry about it. Jun Moxie laughed bitterly and said, Even a bottle made of primordial spiritual jade can't store the golden jade fluid. It looks stable and sturdy, but after a while, it will become an empty bottle and vaporize. Then, why don't we just leave it in there and wait for a better way to improve it in the future? Although Mei Shuyan was also eager to improve her own strength, she could still distinguish between 1 drop and 10 million drops. If she lost 10 million drops for 1 drop, Mei Shuyan felt that she would be heartbroken even if she was above the Holy Emperor. Actually, it's not that there's no way, but I'm not 100% sure. The method that Jun Moxie thought of was to use the flame of chaos. As long as he sealed the spirit vein with the flame of chaos at the moment of cutting it open, and let the remaining golden jade fluid continue to stay inside, it would be worth it even if a certain amount of golden jade fluid was lost. But the problem now was that the flame of chaos seemed to be a little too powerful. Who knew if it would completely burn away the golden jade fluid? Moreover, sealing it was just an idea. No one could guarantee that it would succeed. What if the opening could not be sealed at all? Either of the 2 possible consequences of failure was enough to make Jun Moxie's heart ache. But the current situation did not allow him to retreat. Gritting his teeth, Jun Moxie still decided to give it a try. Where there's a will, so what if it was really destroyed? If he could not improve his strength, even if he had such a treasure, wouldn't it be the same as going into a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed? Jun Moxie stood up and stretched out his palm. A long sword that was emitting a dazzling light suddenly appeared in his hand. The godly sword, Blood of Yellow Flame. This sword could be said to be a well-deserved godly weapon now. In some aspects, it could even be regarded as a good item that did not exist in the legendary immortal realm. Jun Moxie first used ordinary metals to forge the body of the sword. Then, he used the essence of the 5 metals to refine it. He even swallowed a few thousand gene of gold. Finally, he fused a few hundred unique 9 nether frost blades from another world into the sword. It could be said that this sword was basically forged from the essence of countless metals. Earth, Xian, 9 nether. Things from these 3 worlds were fused into this godly sword. Now, this small long sword weighed no less than 500 kilograms. It would be difficult for an ordinary person to move it, even if they wanted to. It was just that this sword had already begun to have spirituality, and after being watered by Jun Moxie's blood, it had achieved the effect of telepathy with Jun Moxie. It was only in his hands that it had the weight of a normal long sword. If it was in the hands of someone else, perhaps even a strong man like Bear Mountain would fall due to carelessness. Shui Yin, step aside first. Jun Moxie held the sword in his hand, and his face instantly showed a determined expression. Chapter 866. So what if it was a reckless waste of God's gifts? So what if there were no more treasures left? If they couldn't even deal with the danger in front of them, there was no point in talking about the future. Mei Shuyan retreated to one side. Just as she moved away, she saw a bolt of cold lightning striking down. When the sharp blade of the blood of yellow flame came into contact with the outer skin of the heaven and earth spirit vein, it was like a red-hot knife cutting into frozen butter. With a swoosh, the outermost piece of the spirit vein, the length of a palm, silently broke off from the top and fell with a thud. This was the outermost part. Even if it was cut off so violently, there was no need to worry about damaging the golden jade fluid inside. Therefore, Jun Moxie had no scruples at all. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. With a wave of his hand, Jun Moxie activated the power of water of the 5 elements. The spiritual chi of the Hongjun Pagoda above him instantly condensed, forming a jade-green stream of water that fell from the sky. At the same time, Jun Moxie used the blood of yellow flame to delicately dig a small hole on the side of the broken piece. The condensed spiritual chi of the spiritual chi flowed into the hole, filling it perfectly. One had to know that although the outermost piece was only the length of a palm, the cross-section was at least 3 feet long, and that small hole was a few feet deep. So, it was enough for Jun Moxie to experiment with. Mei Shuyan stared at it, only to see Jun Moxie wave his hand resolutely and shout coldly, "Flame of primal chaos, appear!" Then, on the tip of Jun Moxie's finger, a pitch-black flame appeared with a bang, dancing silently and softly. Jun Moxie took a deep breath and exerted force. The flame of primal chaos suddenly roared and burned fiercely. Then, June Moxie placed the black flame of primal chaos on the cross-section at lightning speed. The cross-section of the spirit vein melted instantly, turning into a sparkling liquid that slowly flowed down and covered the entire small hole. June Moxie heaved a sigh of relief. With a thought, the primal flame disappeared from his fingers again. He reached out his hand and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. How could June Moxie not be nervous? If this experiment was successful, then the golden jade fluid would become a treasure that he could access at will. No matter when he wanted to use it, he only needed to insert a needle into the paste and release 2 drops. Then, he would use this method to cover it up, and everything would be fine. However, if this experiment ultimately failed, then it would be best to temporarily put aside this plan to increase his strength. June Moxie took a deep breath as he looked at the half of the spirit vein that was already stuck to the ground. Then, another snow-white sword light flashed in the air and slashed down. The sword fell. Sure Kai. The 2 halves that had been cut off began to flow out. The crystal-clear liquid formed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth dripped out drop by drop. Then, in an instant, it turned into misty spiritual energy and floated in the air. It's done. June Moxie took a few deep breaths, his eyes shining. It's done? Mei Shuiyan seemed to be in disbelief. Is it really done? Are you sure? This is not an ordinary item. What if there's a mistake? There's no what if. June Moxie interrupted and said joyfully, the reason why I didn't use ordinary water just now, but used my strength to transform the spiritual energy into water, was to prevent this from happening. You know, even the golden jade fluid is just a liquid formed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It's just that its concentration is much higher than ordinary spiritual liquid, and there are more subtle changes in it. But no matter how it changes, its essence will not change. That is, it's still a liquid. June Moxie's eyes shone with an unusually fervent light as he looked at the huge spirit vein in front of him. He said slowly, today's experiment has a profound meaning. This experiment shows that our June family will rise from now on and will never fall. The spiritual energy in the Hong June Pagoda is 1,000 times thicker than outside. The spirit vein of heaven and earth will develop even faster here. The amount of golden jade fluid inside will only increase, and it will be enough for the descendants of the June family to live for thousands of years. As long as one's cultivation reaches a certain level, with the help of a drop of golden jade fluid, one can quickly rise to the level of the Holy Emperor, or even higher. Yes, as long as you can stay here, the June family will continue to prosper for thousands of years to come. Mei Shuiyan's eyes were hazy, but she asked a sharp question, but can you really do it? Apart from you, who else in the June family can use this sword of yours to break through the spirit veins of heaven and earth and control the black flames of primal chaos to mend the flaws? Even if they have both, do you think they can have a Hong June Pagoda? June Moxie was stunned. After a long time, he murmured, that's right. I was too excited just now and neglected this most important point. But I will do my best to stay here until the day I have no choice but to leave. Mei Shuiyan's words meant birth, old age, sickness, and death. In her heart, no matter how powerful a legendary person was, there was no immortal in this world. She was only mentioning this fact in a very vague manner. But what June Moxie was thinking about was another matter. Of course, in his previous life, he had never believed in the existence of immortals, ghosts, or immortality. But in this life, especially after obtaining the Hong June Pagoda, he believed it. The truth was right in front of him. How could he not believe it? If his power reached a level where this world could no longer accommodate him, then he would definitely have to leave. The Nine Nether First Young Master might have left this land because he was tired of staying here, but it should also be because his power was too strong. Perhaps those ancient legends of ascending to the heavens really existed, and no one knew for sure. June Moxie chose one of the 2 spirit veins and cut off a palm-sized core piece, passing it to Mei Shuiyan. You keep this peace. If there comes a day when I'm not by your side, and you're injured, use a small knife to scrape off some powder and mix it with water to drink. This peace has a gentle luster, and it already has the quality of a nephrite. It's a good thing equivalent to the heaven-earth immortal milk. Mei Shuiyin agreed, and carefully placed the small piece of jade into her bosom. June Moxie couldn't help but laugh at her careful and cautious look. You don't have to be so careful. This is only a temporary measure. There might not be a time when we are separated. Even if we are not together for a day or two, you might not get injured. There are no absolutes in this world. There will always be people who get injured. Living in this world, especially for experts like us who have broken away from the restraints of law and order, it has always been the survival of the strong and the death of the weak. Rolling between life and death every day, how can we not get injured? Mei Shuiyin sighed softly, feeling a little down. She forced a smile and said, "The laws of you humans, the laws of us Xian beasts. We have already broken away from it. That's right, this is how the world works." June Moxie also said with deep emotions, "Humans are really a strange species. Before humans appeared in this world, everyone had to abide by the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. The weak are prey to the strong. Although it is cruel, it is the fairest. However, after humans appeared, they began to fight for power and profit. Why did they fight for power and profit? In the end, it was for the sake of unification, for the sake of desire. Under this premise, the law was created. The original intention of the law was to make everyone equal and to make the country easier to manage. But after the law was created, the people who were bound were still the weakest. It was only limited to equality between the weak and the weak." He sighed deeply and continued, "On the contrary, after obtaining a certain level of power and status, the rules of conduct would no longer follow the basic provisions of the law and once again return to the ancient law of the jungle. The strong survive and the weak perish. For example, the fight between the Jun family and the Leaf family in Tianxiang Kingdom, or the fight between the various aristocratic families in the capital. Would the legal system of the kingdom really be of any use? The most important thing is which of these aristocratic families is more powerful. As for the fight between the strong like the Holy Land, Tianfa, it is completely a step further of the law of the jungle. In other words, humans, whether it is power or personal strength, after reaching a certain level and position, they will transform into beasts again. I'm really curious. Then why is this civilization, or the so-called equal legal system, fighting for power and profit, bleeding and sacrificing? What is the meaning? Is it just a return to the law of the jungle one last time?" Mei Shuiyin smiled. "I didn't expect you to be so emotional. I might not be emotional, but I do have my thoughts, and it is also true that I don't understand. Unfortunately, it seems like no one can give me an answer to these questions." June Moxie smiled bitterly and said, "When I think of these things, I feel that this world is actually really F***ed up. Those who really need equality and fairness can't get it, but those who get it will eventually abandon it. Don't you think it's funny?" "It's not funny. It's not funny at all." Mei Shuiyin laughed and said, "Actually, there is no such thing as fairness in this world. In the past, there was once a great sage who said, when a prince breaks the law, he will be punished the same as the commoners. But there's one point that was not explained, and that is, the so-called law is actually made by people. Whether it is the person who made the law or the person who carried out the law, they all enjoy some big or small privileges. This is the law, and this kind of law is the same as the privilege of the Beast Kings in our Tianfa forest." Mei Shuiyin smiled charmingly and said, "In the Tianfa forest, there are incidents where the weak are eaten by the strong almost every day, and we Beast Kings never care about it. We just let them do what they want to do. There is only one rule. Between the different races, there is not to be a war." He didn't care about anything else. But if there is a conflict between the Beast Kings, the war between the different races can still be fought as they please. Different is different. The law is naturally effective, but it depends on who is the one breaking the law. The Beast Kings of our Tianfa forest are naturally not bound by the laws that we make. Chapter 867. Haha, well said. Humans are just another group of Xian beasts. In fact, they can't even compare to Xian beasts. How can they be as pure and simple as Xian beasts? At most, they're just some wild beasts with very developed brains. June Moxie laughed heartily and said, Laws? Oomph. If there's a law, there'll be a way to break it. Sooner or later, I'll create a law that belongs to me, June Moxie, in this world. I want to be the one who creates the laws, the one who sets the rules. I'll never be an ant that's bound by the laws. If you're really the one who sets the laws of this world, I really can't imagine how ridiculous this world will become because of you. Mei Xian laughed bitterly and said, Don't talk about those irrelevant things. At least, it's very far away. Let's first deal with this hurdle in front of us. What you're saying doesn't make sense. There are some things that need to be made clear first. June Moxie smiled and stretched out his legs as he sat down on the ground. He narrowed his eyes and said, As long as we can successfully survive this upgrade, our strength will increase greatly. When we appear in the world again, the only thing we'll be facing is a head-on battle with the 3 Holy Lands. This time, it's already equivalent to a huge battle. I believe that after this battle, no matter who wins or loses, before the war for seizing the heavens ends, the 3 Holy Lands will definitely not send people to find trouble with us. If we win this battle, or even annihilate all of them, the 3 Holy Lands will no longer have any confidence in the war for seizing the heavens. In fact, compared to the strange races, their strength will be greatly reduced, and they'll be at a complete disadvantage. Mei Xian said worriedly, This battle, if we win, then the war for seizing the heavens will be in danger. If we lose, then we'll be consigned to eternal damnation. This is really contradictory. Contradictory? Is it really a contradiction that can't be resolved? Not necessarily. June Moxie held the back of his head and laid on the ground leisurely. He said lightly, Times are different from the past. Right now, all the Beast Kings of Tian Fa have basically reached the level of a venerable. And the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer that I've carefully nurtured, although their strength is a little lower, they're basically at the same level. After this battle, as long as you bring the Spirit Vein Fragment back to the Tian Fa forest, then use the powder of the Spirit Vein Fragment and let them drink it with spring water. Their strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds. I believe that even if not everyone can reach the level of Saint, it will definitely not be too far off. At the very least, they will have the strength and qualifications to participate in the war for seizing the heavens. June Moxie smiled. If we lose this battle, we will inevitably lose our reputation. Naturally, there's no need to talk about it anymore. But if we emerge victorious in the end, and the 3 Holy Lands are crippled by us, then the war for seizing the heavens that concerns the future of the Xian continent will naturally be our duty. Even if we have to charge head-on, I will send out a group of experts to completely annihilate the strange races. From then on, this continent will no longer have a F***ing war for seizing the heavens. I will not allow anyone to use this open and honorable flag to carry out those despicable acts. Furthermore, this is not the only way to increase one's strength. I have my ways. June Moxie scoffed. You plan to directly annihilate the entire strange races. Mei Xian's eyes lit up as she asked, Of course, if we can completely annihilate that kind of trash, why would we keep them alive? Do you have any objections? June Moxie asked in confusion. Why would I have any objections? If we can really annihilate those wretched strange races once and for all, it's naturally better than anything else. Since you have such confidence, determination, and ambition, then this time we will play hard with the 3 Holy Lands. Mei Xian said excitedly. June Moxie felt a headache coming on. He knew that Mei Xian's heart was still most concerned about the war for seizing the heavens. To Mei Xian, this topic was not only of great significance, but also deeply rooted and indelible. It was impossible to change it in a short period of time. Therefore, Jun Daxiao wanted to first give Mei Shuyan a reassurance that her future was limitlessly bright. Anyway, he already had the strength to do so, so it was not considered bragging. Furthermore, he hated those filthy, strange races the most, even more than the people from the three Holy Lands. Even if he really killed them all, it didn't matter. Shui Yin, are you ready? Jun Moxie raised the blood of yellow flame, and on the edge of the sword, a faint cold light had already begun to radiate. I'm ready. Mei Shuyan nodded solemnly, her eyes shining brightly. When my divine sword falls, you must immediately take away the golden jade fluid and leave immediately. You must immediately take away the dripping golden jade fluid, and then leave immediately, without any stops along the way. The moment the sword falls, I will activate the flame of chaos at the same time to seal the cut. Any delay in the middle may cause a large amount of golden jade fluid to be lost. I believe that you already understand the importance of the golden jade fluid, so there must be no mistakes. Jun Moxie slowly raised the sword, and the divine sword above his head was already swallowing and spitting out a blazing white sword light. Don't worry. Mei Shuyan stared unblinkingly at the main body of the spiritual vein in front of her, her mind completely focused. In each of her palms, there was a ball of dense, spiritual qi brewing. After it twisted and tumbled, under the pressure of her exquisite power, it finally took the shape of two small jade bottles. Using the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to create the jade bottles, just to store the golden jade fluid in an instant. Now, Jun Moxie shouted, and then the wind and thunder surged. It could be said that Jun Mo Xie had used all of his strength in this sword strike. He had concentrated all of his strength into the blade of the sword. As the long sword slashed down, there was a faint aura of the Milky Way flowing down for 1,000 li. The sword fell. Drops of sparkling purple liquid slowly flowed out from the smooth incision. The entire space of the Hongjun Pagoda was instantly filled with an indescribable fragrance. The two of them had only just smelled it, but they already felt their entire bodies become relaxed and comfortable to the extreme. Just at the moment when the golden jade fluid was about to drip, Mei Shuyan's figure turned into a flash of lightning, and she rushed out from the other side without stopping. She said softly, "It's done." Before her voice died away, a dark flame had already covered the fine cut of the main body of the spiritual vein. In the soundless burning process, the incision on the hard main body of the heaven and earth spirit vein quickly melted and flowed down. Coincidentally, the small hole in the incision that was only as thick as a thumb was tightly sealed. Jun Moxie chuckled with satisfaction. The long sword instantly returned to its sheath and then disappeared without a trace. The spiritual qi that filled the Hongjun Pagoda suddenly surged and became much denser than before. Although the two of them cooperated very well just now, it was inevitable that 2 or 3 drops of the heaven and earth spiritual vein and golden jade fluid dripped onto the ground, instantly turning into a huge amount of spiritual energy that flowed into the Hongjun Pagoda. At this time, the 2 small bottles in Mei Shuyan's palms, which were condensed from extremely pure spiritual energy, were showing signs of melting. And the 2 drops of golden jade fluid seemed to have a life of their own, the purple light becoming more and more dazzling. The small bottles obviously could no longer withstand the huge pressure that it was releasing from within. Don't be negligent and don't hesitate. Take it immediately. Guard your soul and break through the bottleneck. Jun Moxie said decisively. He took one of the small bottles, and without hesitation, he swallowed the small bottle into his stomach. And on the other side, Mei Shuyan did the same thing. As soon as the small bottle made of spiritual energy entered his stomach, the outer layer of spiritual energy dissipated, and the golden jade fluid began to take effect. With a loud bang, Jun Moxie felt an unprecedented, tsunami-like force erupting from his dantian, rushing towards his limbs and bones. His subconscious attempts to stop it did not have the slightest effect. Oh no! Although he had tried to overestimate the effect of the spiritual energy, it seemed that he had made some mistakes. The effect of the essence of heaven and earth that had been condensed for millions of years was indeed astonishing. It was really too huge. Jun Moxie roared, "Come, let's press our palms against each other," advancing left and retreating right. The Xian-Qi cycle endlessly, yin and yang complementing each other, forming a world of its own. As he said this, he flew in front of Mei Shuiyan and sat down cross-legged. Mei Shuiyan's body was already on the verge of exploding from the powerful effects of the golden jade fluid, and she was at a loss of what to do. She barely understood what Jun Moxie meant, and used the last bit of her consciousness to force herself to stretch out her hands and press them against Jun Moxie's hands, and both of them activated their Xian-Qi at the same time. The spiritual energy of the same origin merged into one almost immediately, turning their bodies into another big cycle back and forth. This meant that there were two more paths for circulation outside of the internal circulation of their bodies, flowing from Jun Moxie's left hand into Mei Shuiyan's right hand. At the same time, Mei Shuiyan's spiritual energy also flowed from her left palm into Jun Moxie's right palm. Then both of their dantian exploded at the same time, as if exploding in their hearts, as if exploding in their brains. The effect of the two drops of golden jade fluid was finally fully activated. It exploded in their bodies at the same time. An unimaginably enormous amount of spiritual energy, like a tsunami, unscrupulously rushed out from the dantian. The two people's bodies seemed to have reached their limits at the same time, and the abundant, profound energy seemed to be able to burst out of their bodies at any moment. And this was just the beginning. But this was just the beginning, and both of them had already fainted from the impact. Only their four palms were still linked together. Their internal spiritual energy was like a great river, surging into their meridians wave after wave, then filling up their bodies. Then, through their connected palms, it was transmitted into each other's bodies, thus triggering an even more violent spiritual energy storm. It was transmitted back again, and then strengthened again. At this moment, both of them had already lost their consciousness, and were only instinctively driving the vast spiritual energy in their bodies. But this unconscious driving only made the spiritual energy storm even more violent. Chapter 868. This phenomenon showed that the effect of that drop of golden jade fluid was not something that the two of them could bear. In fact, it had greatly exceeded the limits of what the two of them could bear. The current situation was undoubtedly extremely dangerous. As long as either one of them could not withstand this violent spiritual power, the other person would also explode at the same time, leaving not even a single bone behind. And now, the four hands of the two of them formed a circle of qi circulation. The violent spiritual energy flowed at high speed within it, unable to be separated anymore. This was a moment of life and death. And at this moment, the Hongjun Pagoda suddenly shone brightly, and a seven-colored light shone out. Then, a simple but powerful force slowly spread out, covering the two of them, protecting them. It seemed to carry a trace of reluctance. This was Jun Moxie's cunning. He had long predicted that if the two of them really could not bear the last moment of their bodies exploding, then the Hongjun Pagoda would certainly protect its master, but it would only protect him. It would never care about Mei Shuiyan's life or death. So, in the instant he bent down and felt that something was wrong, he had joined his body with Mei Shuiyan, forming their spiritual energy into one. In this way, if the Hongjun Pagoda wanted to save him, it would have to save Mei Shuiyan as well. If it did not save him, would it dare? So, Jun Dashao dared to launch this upgrade operation. It was all because of the strong backing of the Hongjun Pagoda. Otherwise, how would Jun Moxie dare to take the golden jade fluid, which would cause immortals to explode and die from a single drop of it? It's not like he was tired of living. Naturally, he could not tell the whole truth to Mei Shuiyan. Otherwise, this girl would definitely not let him take the risk. And she did not know what kind of confidence he had. He could only do what was done first, and only speak after he had upgraded he could do whatever he wanted. Time seemed to slip away quietly. It had been a whole 7 days since the Chun family had been annihilated. Chrysanthemum City was extremely calm, without wind or waves, still bustling with activity. It wasn't that no one noticed that the once domineering Chun family, for some reason, had completely disappeared in this period of time. However, no one would have thought that the true decision-makers of Chrysanthemum City, the Chun family, had all died with a grudge against the heavens. Presently, the Chun clan's courtyard house had long since been occupied by Zhang Mubai and the others, and they lived extremely peacefully, so they had a clear conscience. These people had been killing for hundreds of years. As long as they killed a few people, as long as it was for the future of the three holy lands, it was equivalent to the future of mankind and the future of the Xian continent. Everything was righteous. It was open and above board. So what if he killed a few people? What's more, it was such a slave-like vassal family. So what if he was killed? As for the matter of living in the victim's residence after killing, they were even more used to it. If there was one unhappiness, perhaps it was because they didn't have any servants to order around, and they had to do everything themselves. But to these hidden experts, the luxuries of the human world were not something they were reluctant to part with. Of course, not everyone was so at ease. There was still one person who had been tortured in this period of time, and the only exception was Qiao Ying. This all-seeing Rakshasa, with profound Xian cultivation and shocking strength, had actually lost a whole circle in these 7 days. Other people could feel that they were righteous and had a clear conscience. They could eat, drink, and sleep as they liked, without any psychological burden at all. But Qiao Ying could not. Great beauty Qiao had the all-seeing eye ability, and the effect of this all-seeing eye was even more obvious this time. And the information it brought was 100% negative. This was because the moment Qiao Ying opened her eyes, all she saw was the Chun family's resentful spirits wailing, blaming, bleeding, and crying. Every night, there were countless spirits scuttling around the Chun family, angrily condemning the people of the sacred grounds. Especially the inside and outside of Zhang Mubai's room. It was almost overcrowded. But their enemy was too powerful. When they were humans, they were powerless to resist. Now that they were ghosts, there was nothing they could do. The powerful Xian Qi and Xian Yang energy of a martial sage was the nemesis of ghosts. As long as they got close, they would be in danger of being annihilated at any time. Others couldn't see it, but that didn't mean that Qiao Ying couldn't. Not only could she see it, but she could also hear it. But she had no way to deal with it. If she was a cruel person, as long as she unleashed her own powerful Xian Yang energy, she could completely annihilate these ghosts. But she was kind-hearted, so how could she do that? Moreover, this matter was completely Zhang Mubai's fault. Therefore, she could only look on helplessly as the countless spirits floated around and screamed in pain. Actually, if Qiao Ying shut off her all-seeing eye, she would naturally not be able to see anything. But after seeing and hearing everything, who would be able to endure it? The more she watched, the colder her heart became. But the colder her heart became, the more she could not help but continue watching. And in this period of time, through one-sided observation of the ghosts, Qiao Ying could be considered to have completely understood the real reason why the Chun family was annihilated. This made her extremely angry at Zhang Mubai's actions. Even though the people in charge of the Chun clan were evil beyond redemption, at most, there were only a few leaders. Even if he wanted to annihilate the entire clan, it would have nothing to do with the ordinary servants. However, Zhang Mubai had ruthlessly and mercilessly eliminated all of them. So in this period of time, Qiao Ying had mentioned more than once that she wanted to subdue Zhang Mubai and punish him severely. She wanted to warn the people of the three holy lands not to be so unscrupulous and disregard justice. But the two guardians who had come along with her refused to agree no matter what. No matter what, Zhang Mubai was also a holy emperor-level expert of the three holy lands. He was also a great contributor to the protection of the Xian continent and an important force in the war for seizing the heavens. If he had to pay with his life for killing a few commoners, then would there still be any logic in this world? This suggestion was a little too laughable. In a fit of anger, Xiao Ying immediately moved out of the Chun family and stayed in it alone. To be honest, in this period of time, the people of the three holy lands were also feeling like a year. The assassins from the Dongfang family and those mysterious experts who had caused trouble earlier, where had they gone? Why was there no movement at all? Even if they came out to cause a ruckus and not let us catch them, just let us know that they still exist. That's fine too. They were anxious, but the people hiding in Dongfang, Wenqing, were even more anxious. They had stayed in that secret place for more than 10 days. Other than the first few days, when Jun Moxie showed up, there was no news at all in the last 7 days. To put it bluntly, it seemed like he had completely vanished from the face of the earth. And Jun Daxiao's last order was only one word. Wait. Wait. Wait, wait, wait. How many years and months do we have to wait? That little bastard. What kind of trick is this? When he comes back, see if I don't smack his butt. Although Uncle Dongfang was extremely angry and his words were even more impassioned, he was fully aware of the situation at hand and did not dare to act rashly. Because he wasn't the only one here. It was fine for him to be impulsive and not cherish his own life, but if he were to drag so many people down with him, especially when most of them were not members of the Dongfang family, this was what Dongfang First Master was most worried about. So, no matter how sullen he felt, no matter how helpless he was, he could only continue to wait. As time passed quickly, news came one after another. The confirmed targets, except for this place, had all been successfully killed. The assassins from the Dongfang family had already returned to the Dongfang family to submit their missions. As for the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members who belonged to Jun Moxie, as well as the assassins, they had all broken up and snuck into Chrysanthemum City one after another. Dongfang Wenqing even knew that these people were now in Chrysanthemum City, but she did not know exactly where they were. However, Dongfang First Master felt that this matter was really miraculous. Although Chrysanthemum City was not his territory, he was still very well informed. But these people came in from all directions, and then like a drop of water melting into the sea, they disappeared without a trace in an instant. And it was not just one or two of them, but he had no idea at all. How did they do it? Although Chrysanthemum City was not small, it was definitely not big. The people from the three holy lands were probing with their divine senses every day, but why did they not catch even one? It seemed that his nephew's subordinates were really skilled, and quite a few of them. Thinking of that brat Moxie, he could not help but ask, what was that brat doing these few days? I'm so anxious. Now, it was not only Uncle Dongfang who was anxious. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was also very anxious. This madman craned his neck and waited every day. My injuries have already recovered to the level when I broke the seal from Tian Fa. I can totally deal with many battles, but why is there no news from that grandpa? Why don't you continue to make trouble? It was not easy for you to break the alliance between their two lands, but why did you disappear at such a crucial time? What are you afraid of? Don't you still have me behind you? What headache? I originally wanted to borrow this brat's momentum to give the three holy lands a good chance to deal a heavy blow. But now, I can only sigh. Another 2 days passed. Even the holy emperors from the three holy lands could not hold it in anymore. It was late at night, and the entire Chrysanthemum City was quiet. In the study of the Chun family's former master, Chun Qing Tian, the lights were flickering. Hai Wuya held a cup of hot tea and furrowed his brows. Don't tell me we've been fooled? Could it be that those people are no longer here, and all their actions were just a feint, and they've already gone somewhere else? The most important point is that the nominal target of those people was that dead Chun Qing Tian. But now that Chun Qing Tian is dead, will they give up just like that? No, they definitely won't. Zhang Mubai sat down. The matters of the past few days had caused this kind-looking and sage-like Saint Emperor to change slightly. A sliver of viciousness faintly shrouded his usually amiable face. He said, since they've caused such a huge ruckus and entered so brazenly, they definitely won't leave without gaining anything. Those people hiding in the dark have sinister intentions. Their real target has never been the Chun family. From the beginning to the end, it has always been us. Now that we're here, how could they possibly leave? Brother Jean is right. During this period of time, we have been strictly controlling the 4 city gates. Every day, there are saints standing guard at the hidden areas of the city gates. Although there were a few suspicious people who came in, there were absolutely no such people who went out. Hiji Chio said with a sullen face. So, they are definitely still in the city. It's just that we don't know where they're hiding. Right now, we don't need to do anything. We only need to wait quietly. When they can't wait any longer, they'll naturally jump out. We should be conserving our strength and biding our time. He smiled proudly. Originally, with our current strength, even conserving our strength and biding our time is unnecessary. I believe that no matter what tricks they play, it won't have any effect. There won't be any accidents either. We just need to wait for the big battle to arrive. When this battle is over, all we have to do is wait patiently for the war for seizing the heavens. That also requires us to wait patiently. We might as well wait now. At least we have something to do. At least it's better than hiding in the mountains and wasting our time. Jean Mubai and Hai Wuya laughed at the same time. Right at this time, suddenly, an extremely mournful cry tore through the pitch-black sky. In this endless silence that was shrouded in darkness, this extremely mournful and miserable howl was like a bolt of lightning that struck in the silent night, causing one's hair to stand on end. The despair and pain in the cry caused one's back to go numb. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. What had happened? Furthermore, although this mournful cry was the last cry of that person before his death, the person who let out this cry was clearly an expert. In fact, it was one of the top experts in the world, because this cry could be heard clearly by the entire Chrysanthemum City. The owner of such a profound skill must have already reached the level of a martial saint. But the moment such a cry was let out, no matter if it was a chicken or a saint, they would definitely not have the slightest chance of survival. Jean Mubai and the other 2 holy emperors stood up at the same time and looked at each other with serious expressions. That's Xia Dongting's voice. Hai Wuya gave an affirmative answer. His facial muscles twitched, and his eyes widened, shooting out 2 sharp beams of light. The rage in his heart had clearly reached a limit. Xia Dongting, a saint-level expert from the illusory blood sea, and his Xian cultivation was even more amazing. But right now, he was actually letting out such a cry of agony. Go! Quickly! Jean Mubai's aura instantly surged, and with a schwa sound, he disappeared from the study. Following that, Hai Wuya and Hiji Qiu also disappeared at the same time. In the study, the red candle burned quietly, the flames stable. The 3 of them left so quickly, and the flame did not even budge. Chapter 869. The 3 of them moved as fast as the wind, arriving at the scene of the incident in the blink of an eye. Outside the room, all the experts of the 3 holy lands had already gathered. Their faces were filled with endless grief and indignation. Every single one of these people had already reached the realm of the top experts in the world, so their reactions were naturally fast. Adding on to the fact that they basically all lived together, they had already rushed over the moment the tragic cries rang out. What happened? Hai Wuya asked with a solemn face. It's Xia Dongting. Xia Dongting is finished. In the crowd, a purple-robed middle-aged man looked at Hai Wuya with a pale face and said in a low voice, Get out of the way. Hai Wuya's expression changed again as he rushed forward. The crowd quickly opened up a path for him, directly to the door. Hai Wuya rushed to the door like a whirlwind. Suddenly, his entire body shook, as if he was a statue. He stood there in a daze, his eyes shining with disbelief. In the room facing the door, half of Xia Dongting's face was facing the sky. His face revealed an extremely twisted and strange expression. His eyes were wide open, and in his pupils that had already frozen, there was despair and anger, as well as some strange colors. His 2 hands were in an extremely strange posture. His left hand was stretched out in a claw shape, and his right hand was bent in an arc towards his shoulder. On his shoulder, the sword that he always carried with him was still in its scabbard, not even unsheathed. His body was extremely twisted, and his mouth was wide open. Only now was blood slowly flowing out from it, drop by drop, dripping on the ground. Hai Wuya's body trembled violently, and he slowly raised his head, closing his eyes. After a while, he slowly asked, "Who was the first to arrive here? Come out and answer me." A purple-robed man with an unusually sorrowful expression slowly walked out from the crowd. "When you arrived, what was it like?" Hai Wuya's voice was very low, as if there was an uncontrollable anger in it. "What did you discover?" This was a perfect assassination. The purple-robed man's expression was solemn and indignant, but there was also a hint of indescribable panic and fear in his eyes. "Lord Hai, Brother Xia, and I are only separated by a wall, but I didn't hear any sound at all during the sudden assassination, and I didn't find anything unusual either. The only sound was Brother Xia's scream. When I got here, it should have been less than half a breath's time. But Brother Xia was already in such a state. The corners of the purple-robed, middle-aged man's eyes couldn't help but twitch. It was obvious that he had been frightened by his own words. It wasn't just him. In fact, everyone who heard his words couldn't help but tremble. These words seemed ordinary, but the deeper meaning contained within them was enough to make every single saint feel threatened and shocked to the extreme. Only separated by a wall, the assassin killed a saint, and the other saint did not hear anything at all and did not even notice anything unusual. Didn't this mean that if the assassin wanted to, he could assassinate any saint at will, and there is absolutely no possibility of failure? What kind of terrifying strength did the assassin have? Was it shocking? Not yet, because the purple-robed man's next words were even more shocking, and even inexplicably shocking. Just now, to be more precise, just a quarter of an hour ago, I was still in Brother Xia's room having a long talk with him. Brother Xia once said that the situation before us is like a storm brewing. The enemy's strength is unfathomable, and even though we are stronger, we can't suppress them to the point where they can't fight back. Therefore, none of us can relax our vigilance at all times. Our weapons must always be within arm's reach and be ready to face the enemy at any time. Precisely because we are stronger, the enemy will definitely use some sneaky tricks to exhaust our strength. We must be careful. But now, the crowd gasped as they stared at Xia Dongting's corpse on the ground and the unmoving, sheathed longsword on his back. Everyone's eyes were filled with incredulity. That was what Xia Dongting said, and he believed that he must have done the same thing. However, in such a state of high vigilance, under the attack of the assassin in the dark, his vigilance did not have the slightest effect at all. If even such a cautious person could not escape, how could the others survive? One-hit kill. A saint did not even have the chance to draw his sword out of its sheath. This was a true martial saint. The long sword was on his back, and it was the most convenient position for him. With just a thought, he could instantly draw the sword out of its sheath and attack. But this sword had lost the chance to be drawn out of its sheath. Then, just how fast was the assassin's attack speed? When I heard the scream and rushed over, Brother Xiao was still breathing, but at that time he could not speak at all. The purple-robed man took a deep breath and said, "The most unbelievable thing is the wound was in the front of the chest. Without any deviation, the sword hit the vital part of the heart." There was an uproar, and then a lot of discussion. The wound was in the front of the chest, which meant that this arrogant assassin actually attacked face to face. A saint, even if he was facing a direct attack from the Holy Emperor, no matter how scared he was, and even if he knew that he was no match for the Holy Emperor, he would not be so cowardly that he could not draw his sword in time. But such an unbelievable fact appeared in front of them. What was going on? This wound is a flaw. The fatal wound could not have been the one that hit the heart. The one who spoke was Zhang Mubai, who came in later, his eyes shining brightly. He said slowly, "If the sword really hit the heart, then, even if it was a member of the Holy Emperor, he would not have the chance to let out such a shrill scream. He would have died instantly. If that was the case, then it would be a perfect assassination. Everyone present was a martial arts expert and naturally understood the mysteries of the human body. Zhang Mu Bai's words were like enlightenment, causing everyone present to be instantly enlightened. Everyone's eyes, in the next moment, focused on Xia Dongting's corpse on the ground. Hai Wuya took a deep breath, squatted down, and laid Xia Dongting's body flat on the ground, and said in a low voice, "Brother Xia, please forgive us. In order to catch the murderer as soon as possible, to prevent other victims, and to avenge Brother Xia, we have no choice but to offend you." All the surrounding saints felt their hearts go numb. Hai Wuya's words indicated what he was going to do: dissect the body and check the wound. Only by doing so could they truly solve the mystery and understand the true cause of death. Hai Wuya stretched out his right hand, and the sword on Xia Dongting's back was unsheathed, shining brightly. This sword was finally unsheathed, but its use was not to kill, but to dissect its own master's body. To the saints, this was such a mockery, but now they could only watch and endure. They were even looking forward to it. With a flash of sword, Xia Dongting's shirt was split in the middle, revealing the muscles on his chest. At the position of his heart, there was an extremely small red mark. If one did not look carefully, they would think that it was an accidental scratch from a tree branch. Who would believe that such a small mark could be fatal to Madame? Hai Wuya's fingers lightly pinched the two sides of the red mark, and suddenly exerted some force. A jet of blood shot out abruptly, with an abnormally strong force. With a schwa sound, it splashed onto the roof, splashing a brilliant red rhododendron. Hai Wuya tilted his head, allowing the jet of blood to pass by his ear. His eyes became even deeper, looking at the wound that he had opened. His pupils constricted, and he muttered, "What a fast sword! What a vicious sword! What a ruthless sword!" Zhang Mubai's expression was equally solemn, and he nodded slowly. Only the fastest sword could pierce through the chest, where the blood was the most concentrated, and then quickly pull it out, leaving no trace at all. Even the liquid blood could only gather in the abdomen, and was forcefully blocked, with no room for it to flow out. Everyone present understood this logic, and all of them knew that they could do it, and most of them had done it before. However, if such a sword technique was utilized against a saint and was able to achieve such an effect, then it was something that no one here was capable of accomplishing. Such a sword technique had always been used to bully the weak. Only when used against an opponent several levels lower than oneself could it be used freely and succeed in one strike. Using such a method against an opponent of the same level, or even higher, was an act of courting death. Saints were existences that had a second life, and the strength of their bodies was indescribable. Even if a normal Tian Xian expert wielded a divine weapon and slashed thousands of times, they might not be able to break through a saint's Xianqi defense. Also, a saint's reaction was also shockingly fast. Once the sword entered the body, the moment they sensed that something was wrong, they could completely tighten their muscles, and at the same time, shift the position of their heart, causing the enemy's sword to stab into the air, and even make use of the enemy's mistake to launch a swift counterattack. But this sword cleanly destroyed a saint's defense. None of the necessary reactions were produced. All they could do was let out an instinctive scream. I believe that everyone has seen clearly. This is where the true fatal injury lies. And it was precisely such a sword. Even a saint was helpless against it. This also confirms Brother Xia's judgment. The enemy's strength is indeed unfathomable. There's an ultimate killer hidden by our side, and his strength is enough to shake the heavens and earth. From today onwards, all saints must maintain a room of 3 and be on high alert. As soon as there is a warning, immediately sound the alarm. We must not be careless, Hai Wuya said solemnly. Everyone present agreed in unison. All of them understood that Hai Wuya's words were not just to scare them, the slightest carelessness, and they could very well become another Xia Dongting. Wait, I'm afraid this matter is not as simple as it seems. Zhang Mubai scoffed. The true meaning of this sword, I'm afraid it is far from just this. It is more like the killer is trying to demonstrate to us. Chapter 870. According to common sense, this sword would have pierced straight into the heart. There's no room for luck. But Xia Dongting could only let out a soft sigh at most. He definitely wouldn't have let out a scream that was so full of energy. Zhang Mubai said decisively, I dare say that if we cut open the wound and examine it carefully, there will be something strange about the sword mark within. Hai Wuya frowned and thought deeply for a moment. Then the sword in his hand fell, and with a swoosh, Xia Dongting's body was cut open from the middle. Zhang Mubai squatted down and carefully flipped it open, saying, Brother Hai, take a look. Needless to say, Hai Wuya's eyes were already wide open. The answer was right in front of his eyes. After the sword accurately pierced into the heart, it deliberately slanted a little, not going straight into the heart, but creating a wound on the side of the heart. This sword could have pierced straight into the heart, making the assassination a perfect one, and even that blood-curdling scream could have been avoided. But the assassin did not do so, and instead deliberately let everyone know of Xia Dongting's death at the first instant. This sword, although it deliberately slanted after hitting a vital point, but it was still a situation of certain death. After the assassin completed his trap, he used Xian Qi to attack the heart from this position, destroying the dantian. The only use of doing this is that the victim will be able to let out a blood-curdling scream at the first instant. But after that scream, the person will also die with no chance of survival. Zhang Mubai stood up, his expression solemn as he said slowly, The opponent in front of us is a madman. He actually let Xia Dongting call him that on purpose. Then his intention must be a warning, or should I say, a provocation. He Xiao, who had been standing quietly at the back, interrupted, He is informing us that he has already begun to make his move. Let us make our preparations, strengthen our defenses, so that this battle can be a little more exciting. Everyone was infuriated by this sentence. This was simply intolerable. Hai Wuya's face was filled with killing intent as he gritted his teeth and said word by word, What an arrogant bastard! As an expert of the Holy Emperor, how could he not be enraged to be looked down upon like this? He Xiao's face was similarly gloomy, and his tone was even lower as he said, The bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. Strength is everything. This is the truth that we all acknowledge. Judging from this assassination attempt, the other party had every right to be arrogant. This kind of assassination ability is not something anyone of our generation can do. The enemy this time is not only powerful, but also extraordinarily shrewd. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's a wily old fox. He let out a long sigh and said in a low voice, Facing such an enemy might not be any less dangerous than facing the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. Not only do we have to pay attention to this person, but we also have to be extra careful. With this person's assassination methods, even we might not have a chance of winning if we were to fight him one-on-one. What's even more despicable is that such an expert, when facing an opponent far weaker than him, actually used assassination. He Xiao gritted his teeth as he said the last sentence. The muscles on his cheeks were throbbing. Obviously, his anger had reached its peak. As soon as these words came out, everyone felt the same way. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was also a madman, but he was also a madman. Although his actions were crazy and arrogant, he would not do such sneaky assassinations. Or rather, he would disdain to do such things. If the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters were to fight, it would definitely be a vigorous battle. He would definitely not attack from behind. But now, the person in the dark that they had to face was clearly an ultimate assassin who would use any means necessary. And this kind of enemy was the one that gave him the most headaches. The degree of difficulty to deal with was indeed above that of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. Brother Jean, I'll say something unpleasant. I think this assassin is probably the result of the disaster you caused. The other party's target might just be you alone. He Chio's face was gloomy as he turned to look at Jean Mubai and smiled. Me? How could it be me? Where did this come from? Brother He, please explain. Jean Mubai did not understand. To be honest, I sincerely hope that my judgment is wrong. Looking at the world today, I've never heard of anyone who has such an assassination method. It has never appeared in Jianghu before. Only today did it suddenly appear. The moment it appeared, it killed a saint. He Chio's eyes were cold as he said slowly, in my estimation, there's only one person who has such a method. Who? Hai Wuya and Jean Mubai asked at the same time. He Chio sighed deeply and said, It's Jun Moxie's mysterious master. Brother Jean ambushed his disciple, so he used the same method to deal with us. This old man thought about his past experiences and could only think of this one explanation. That's right. It must be so. Hai Wuya and Jean Mubai came to a realization at the same time. The three holy lands had experienced tens of thousands of years, and they did not have any enemies in this world today. Not to mention such a powerful enemy. Other than this reasonable explanation, there really was no other possibility. But Guardian Elder Qiao clearly said that Jun Moxie did not die. She even saw Jun Moxie appear in Chrysanthemum City with her own eyes. Hai Wuya muttered, If Jun Moxie really did not die, why did his master go crazy to deal with us? That little thief took a blow from me with all my strength. With that little thief's insignificant strength, how could he not die? And she had never seen Jun Moxie before, so she did not know what Jun Moxie looked like. Could it be that just because she said so? Regarding this, I have never believed it. Jean Mubai snorted and said unhappily. This she in Jean Mubai's words was naturally Qiaoing. It was very obvious that Xiao Ying's dissatisfaction with him a few days ago, and her action of almost making Holy Emperor Jean pay with blood, had caused this Holy Emperor Jean to be extremely dissatisfied. Elder Qiao is a person of virtue and prestige, and is cautious. That news might not be false. Hai Wuya said uncertainly. Women's benevolence must not be carried out. Women's words must not be listened to. Jean Mubai's face was ashen. He rolled his eyes and said, Unless that little thief Jun Moxie really appears in front of me, alive and well. Otherwise, I will definitely not believe that he is still alive. The others looked at each other and did not speak. After a long time, Hai Wuya said, Arrange Brother Xia's body properly. We must hire an expert craftsman to stitch up Brother Xia's body. When we return, let him return to his roots. Everyone else, be on your guard. We must not be careless. The opponent we're going to face this time is definitely not to be underestimated. Yes, everyone replied in unison. The night deepened, and the wind seemed to become even stronger. The boundless curtain of night seemed to be gradually increasing an invisible pressure, causing the atmosphere between heaven and earth to be filled with boundless desolation and desolation. This is a battle that has nothing to do with justice or evil. At the same time, it is also a battle where there is no right or wrong. The reason why I'm doing this is not because of some noble reason. I'm only doing this so that I and my family can survive. This is the only reason why I am fighting. That is all. Jun Moxie stood quietly in the dense canopy of a large tree hundreds of zhang away from the Qin family, and said in a low voice, There are no slogans in this battle, and there are no so-called righteous principles. There is only life and death. So, we must not be lenient. No matter if the opponent is a scoundrel or a saint, as long as he wants us dead, the only correct thing we can do is to let him die before us. No matter if he is a hero or a saint, those who are our enemies can only be called enemies. That is all. I have understood these principles a few hundred years earlier than you. Can you stop saying it over and over again? Mei Shuiyan furrowed her beautiful eyebrows. Her expression seemed as if she was about to go crazy. Jun Moxie had been happily doing this kind of political and ideological work for many days now. He had to say the same words dozens of times every day. Right now, as long as Jun Moxie said the first word, Mei Shuiyan would be able to say the rest of the words he wanted to say without missing a single word. I just want to tell you, You just want to tell me that it doesn't matter if their motive is for the war, for seizing the heavens, or if they are really doing this for the sake of the world. But if they want us dead, then we must not be soft-hearted. If we need to kill, we must kill. If we need to chop, we must chop. If we need to be despicable, we must be despicable. If we need to be sinister, we must be sinister. So smart. Actually, this is what I meant. I am very relieved that you finally understand. Jun Moxie clapped his hands and said with a smile. Mei Shuyan was a little speechless. How could she not be smart? In these few days, she had heard these words at least 1,000 times. She had almost been tortured to the point of a mental breakdown by these words. If she still couldn't remember it, that would be too unreasonable. Not to mention remembering it, she could even recite it backwards without a problem. Xia, I just don't understand. You obviously had the ability to kill that Xia Dong Ting silently with one sword, making the entire assassination perfect. But why did you deliberately make him scream? Mei Shuyan frowned and said, I don't object to killing them, but I definitely don't agree with torturing them. A person's death is like a lamp going out. No matter how great the sin is, a sword through the heart will be enough. Why must you make it so cruel? No, you've misunderstood. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. First, you must understand that my actions this time are definitely not torturing them. You haven't seen real torturing them yet. When there's time and the conditions are right, I will show it to you bit by bit. I guarantee that I will make you, the Emperor of the Beasts, speechless and sweating profusely, lose all your strength. Second, Mei Xian gritted her teeth and suppressed her temper, not wanting to argue with this brat. Smart. You actually know that I have a second intention. Jun Moxie's words almost made Mei Shuyan faint. She rolled her eyes and forced herself to control herself. You already said first, if I still don't know that there's a second, third, and so on, then wouldn't I be too stupid? Second, my purpose is to let him inform the people from the 3 holy lands that I'm here. The game of revenge has officially begun. Everyone must slowly enjoy the fun of the game. Jun Moxie said proudly, you must know, especially enemies like us who are invisible can give the enemy the greatest pressure. Once night falls, the eyes of the ghosts will be filled with danger, suspicious of everything, trembling with fear, panicking at the slightest sound. Even if the 2 of us are sleeping soundly, they will still maintain the highest level of vigilance, not daring to relax at all. After a long period of time like this, TSK, this is the highest level of torture. Is there a third? Mei Shuyan snorted and said. But in her heart, she was cursing. So sinister. Of course there's a third. Jun Moxie chuckled and scratched his head, saying, the third intention is my main intention. That is to use this scream to tell another person that I'm here and that I'm already taking action. Hurry up and cooperate with me. If I'm late, I can eat until I'm full, but he won't even have any soup to drink. Inform someone? Who is it? Oh, Mei Shuyan immediately understood. It's the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Jun Xie comfortably changed his posture and said, of course, we're a lot stronger now. But if we can have a free fighter as our vanguard, why wouldn't we be happy about it? There's no such thing as too many free fighters. It would be great if we could have 8 or 10 of them. Free fighters and 8 or 10 of them. What are you thinking, you? Mei Shuyan was annoyed and amused at the same time. The famous 9 serenities and 14 masters, in his words, had become a free fighter? Confucius said, it's better to be happy together than to be happy alone. Jun Moxie yawned and turned his body sideways. Don't move. Let me take a nap. I'm really sleepy. As he said that, he rested his head on Mei Shuyan's thighs. He closed his eyes comfortably. This scoundrel. Mei Shuyan glared at him for a long time, but in the end, she couldn't bear to throw him down the tree. There was no other reason. These few days, Jun Daxiao had been working too hard and was too tired. Thinking of this, Mei Shuyan's heart softened, but she also felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. She was the only one who knew what Jun Xie had been doing these past few days. He almost didn't have time to close his eyes. He was very busy. He was busy when she was sleeping, and when she woke up, he was still busy. He was really too tired. Let him do whatever he wanted today, and let him have a good sleep. Mei Shuiyan looked at June Moxie lovingly. He closed his eyes and rested his head on her thighs. His face showed a sincere expression of relief and even a sense of tranquility. She couldn't help but feel sweet in her heart. Only in her arms could he be so relaxed for a while. At this time, June Moxie, who seemed to have fallen asleep, said in a daze. Confucius said, "This woman's thighs are really smooth. I really want to peel them off and touch them." This sentence made Mei Shuiyan's heart surge with tenderness and the natural motherly instinct of a woman who wanted to protect this man, and her arms disappear without a trace. It also smashed the tempting thought of kissing this man out of the sky. Mei Shuiyan was seething with anger. Yesterday, I had a sudden inspiration and thought of a wonderful idea, but I didn't have a pen with me at that time. When I hurriedly got off the car and ran home, I found that I had forgotten this wonderful idea. Chapter 871. The night deepened, and just as dawn arrived, a huge storm arrived. That day, young Master Jun used all his means, using himself as a hostage to force the Hongjun Pagoda to release its shocking power to protect him, and Mei Shuiyan, successfully absorbing the terrifying medicinal power of the golden jade fluid for his own use. With the help of the ultimate cheating device, the Hongjun Pagoda, the two of them successfully completed the task. After the breakthrough, the two still did not leave, continuing to stay in the Hongjun Pagoda. Mei Shuiyan was consolidating her cultivation. The Hongjun Pagoda was the safest, most peaceful place and had a huge amount of pure spiritual energy. It was the best choice for consolidating one's cultivation. As for June Moxie, he was busy concocting pills or doing something else. In any case, he was overjoyed and overworked. When the two came out, they went to an empty place outside the city and stayed there for a while. Their goal was naturally to deal with the heavenly tribulation that would come along with their continuous advancement in cultivation. If it came quickly and passed as quickly as possible, then everything would be fine. However, the two of them waited for several hours, but there was no response at all. This made Mei Shuiyan very puzzled. It was not difficult to understand why people would be careless, but the heavenly tribulations were the killing intent of the heavens. Could it be that they would be careless? The two of them had leveled up at the same time and had leveled up several times. In other words, each of them had accumulated at least 5 or 6 heavenly tribulations. But now there was no reaction. The two guessed for a while, but had no clue. But they could not just wait like idiots. Confused, they went to Chrysanthemum City again and killed Xia Dongting that night. Previously, they did not have enough strength to kill him. Now that they had enough strength, wouldn't they be stupid not to make a move? The target this time was still a 3rd-level saint. Even after his advancement, young Master Jun still had to use his true strength in order to kill him in one blow. But it was also because of this that his true strength was fully displayed, and the heavenly tribulations that had not reacted for a long time, suddenly they reacted. Furthermore, it seemed like it wasn't just Jun Dashao's heavenly tribulation. Both of their heavenly tribulations had arrived together. Therefore, ever since the two of them came out of the Chun family, the dark clouds in the sky had been gathering, almost ceaselessly. It was as if they wanted to gather all the clouds in the world on this day. On this morning, all of them in one place. The lightning that had been accumulating for an unknown period of time gradually approached from afar. The dense dark clouds slowly formed a huge vortex in the sky, and finally formed a huge eye. It was as if a one-eyed monster had suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, after a flash of lightning, it did not immediately descend. Instead, it disappeared into the eye and became completely motionless. Then, another batch of dark clouds gathered and disappeared after a flash of lightning, and so on and so forth. In the wee hours of the morning, the dark clouds in the sky pressed down, giving people a very strange feeling. It was within reach. It was as if he only needed to stretch out his hand, and he would be able to tear off a portion of the thick dark clouds. Furthermore, the tops of a few tall trees had already reached into the dark clouds. One could see how dense the dark clouds had become at this moment. The intense pressure of heaven and earth was getting heavier and heavier. Even the whistling sound of the wind that used to come and go freely seemed to be struggling and unable to move forward. In the sky above, there were already close to 100 terrifyingly huge eyes, densely covering the dark clouds. There was no lightning, nor any other color. There was only jet black. Black, this kind of black that was even darker than the night. Even if a person placed their own finger in front of their eyes, they would not be able to see it at all. Always preparing, always gathering, completely without any extra movements. But this kind of heavy pressure made everyone unable to breathe. This kind of supreme pressure that came from heaven and earth, for ordinary people and low-level Shin cultivators, was naturally only a kind of pressure. But for experts who had already grasped part of the power of heaven and earth, it was an indescribable shock. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, all the experts above the supreme level, at this moment, did not dare to move at all. No matter if it was a superior supreme, a venerable, a saint or a saint emperor, all of them had to be extremely careful. They didn't even dare to breathe too loudly, much less move. Most importantly, they didn't dare to use even the slightest bit of their Xian energy. They were afraid that if they moved slightly with the guidance of their qi, this unknown and terrifying heavenly tribulation would come for them. This was not a joke, nor was it a groundless fear, but a real possibility. When the heavenly tribulation came, it would only look for the person who initiated it. But if someone else took the initiative to help, or coincidentally entered the range of the heavenly tribulation, the level of the heavenly tribulation would correspondingly increase, increasing its power by 2 times or even more. Everyone connected to it would be reduced to ashes. But in this situation, this scale of heavenly tribulation, it was something that had never been seen before. So no one dared to move, no matter how strong the experts were. Who knew who this heavenly tribulation was looking for? What if the moment I move, the heavenly tribulation comes for me, and I become the scapegoat for someone else? When I die an unjust death. Furthermore, this vat is a super huge one. Once it comes into contact with it, it's definitely not a 9 out of 10 chance of survival, but a 10 out of 10 chance of survival, or even 100 chance of survival. With such a terrifying battle array, even if all the experts of the 3 holy lands were to be brought over to make up the numbers, even if the heavenly tribulation didn't increase in strength due to the increase in the number of people, they would still be turned into a pile of ashes, such a scale. Even if the 9 Nether First Young Master came, he would also be shocked. From the beginning to the end, in the tens of thousands of years, there had never been such a strange situation, not even once. A total of 99 eyes stared silently in the sky. The energy was still accumulating, but there was still no movement. It couldn't be that there were 99 experts breaking through at the same time and attracting the heavenly tribulation at the same time, right? But why hasn't the lightning struck yet? What are they waiting for? All the trees were silent, waiting for the rain to come. Finally, all of a sudden, the piercingly cold wind whistling in the air seemed to have been cut in half by a knife, and suddenly stopped blowing violently. A moment ago, it was still raging like a tsunami, but now it was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Such a strong contrast caused everyone's heart to tremble. It's here. Jun Moxie and Mei Xuan were still waiting on the tree, as if they were afraid that the lightning would not strike them. So they purposely placed themselves at the highest spot. 19, 20, 35, 77. Right now, Jun Dashao was lying on the lap of a beauty, counting the number of the huge eyes in the sky with his fingers. As he counted, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and said, "That's not right. This number doesn't seem right." "What's not right?" Mei Xuan asked. "Breakthrough. Under normal circumstances, this thing will only appear once." Jun Moxie pointed at the strange phenomenon in the sky and said, "When the corresponding energy is used up, it will pass." Even though this time, both of us have surpassed many levels, and both of us are going through the heavenly tribulation together, it is understandable that the number is slightly higher, but it shouldn't be as high as the number in the sky right now. Isn't this bullying? Jun Dashao was a little annoyed, and he said, "Look, I went from Venerable Level 3 to Venerable Level 4, then Holy Level 1 to Holy Level 4, and then to Holy Emperor Level 3. This is at most 8 breakthroughs. As for you, because the two of us were one when you broke through, your strength was the same as mine. In other words, the two of us combined would only have 16 lightning strikes at most. Even if the two of us went through it together and doubled the number, it would only be 32 lightning strikes. But this thing actually appeared 99. More than 3 times? What is this?" Jun Dashao said angrily. "If this isn't playing with people, then what is? This evil heavens. Where did they learn arithmetic from?" Mei Shuyan put her hand on her forehead and said sadly, "Ah, why don't you go up and reason with them? Do you think I'm stupid?" "I'm not going." Jun Moxie refused decisively. "Whoever goes is an idiot." What a joke, jumping up into the sky to reason with the heavenly tribulation. Even if you want to die, you don't have to do that. Are you trying to murder your husband? Mei Shuyan giggled, and her body trembled. These two, in the face of such a terrible heavenly tribulation, did not care at all, and just laughed and scolded, as usual, suddenly. At the moment when the sky was silent to the extreme, and also at the moment when the color of the sky was dark to the extreme, the clouds suddenly whistled violently, and then the entire world suddenly erupted with light. An unprecedentedly powerful ball of purple lightning suddenly formed at the center of the dark clouds, and then accompanied by an earth-shattering roar of thunder, a pillar of lightning as thick as a water tank came crashing down, straight, accurately striking the tree that the two of them were hiding in. The entire earth trembled violently. At this moment, Zhan Mubai and the rest were in the Chun family's courtyard, and they were the closest to the place where the heavenly tribulation was happening. Everyone felt as if they couldn't breathe. What kind of monster was going through the heavenly tribulation? How could it have such a terrifying momentum? Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan used the yin-yang escape at the same time, causing their bodies to turn into nothingness. The water tank-like lightning pillar whizzed over, and almost at the moment it formed, it struck the towering tree. Hai Wuya and the rest waited with their mouths agape, their eyes filled with hopelessness and despair. Nobody had expected that the bastard who was going through the heavenly tribulation would be so close to them. Looks like today, none of them would be able to escape this calamity. Everyone understood that what was going to happen next was going to be an unparalleled explosion. Or perhaps, with this strike of lightning, everything within a few hundred feet would be turned into ashes, and the ashes would spread until all the energy of the heavenly tribulation was used up. Chapter 872. It was believed that after this lightning tribulation, everyone here, no matter if they were experts or commoners, would not be spared. This goddamn bastard, who would break through their tribulation in a densely populated area. Especially such a terrifying lightning tribulation. This was simply asking for death, and he even wanted to implicate others. The lightning pillar fell with a loud rumble, and the unprecedented explosion that everyone expected unexpectedly did not occur. This huge bolt of lightning was like a drop of water that had melted into the vast ocean from start to finish. There was no sound at all, not a single sound. What exactly was going on? A huge question mark rose in everyone's heart. That the momentum of the lightning was clearly not fake. Such a shocking momentum. Could it be a feint? They had never heard of such a thing. Following that, the second, third, the frequency of the lightning pillar's descent became more and more frequent, and the volume also became thicker and thicker, gradually striking down from the sky without a moment's pause. The entire ground was trembling, shaking like a sieve, the gravel on the ground, bouncing up and down from the thunder. But after the lightning struck down, the sound of the explosion still did not ring out. Heavens! What was going on? Could it be that the person undergoing the tribulation can actually use his own strength to resolve such a lightning tribulation? How is this possible? Hiji Chio stood in front of the window, dumbfounded, watching everything, his thoughts already stagnant. It seemed like this was the only reasonable explanation, but was this really possible? In another place in the city, on the roof of the inn, another three figures stood side by side, staring at the place where the crazy lightning and thunder descended not far away. Everyone's face was solemn. Amongst these three people, the one in the middle was dressed in fluttering white clothes, delicate and graceful. It was Xiao Ying, and beside her were two thin, middle-aged men, one on the left and one on the right. They just stood quietly on the roof, not using any profound energy, but all three of them had an extraordinary bearing, like a towering mountain, as if the dark clouds in the sky had been lifted up by their tall bodies with a single shoulder. What exactly is going on? Is there really someone passing through? Xiao Ying's low voice seemed to be asking herself, but also seemed to be asking the other two beside her. The expressions of the two people beside her became complicated at the same time. They looked at each other, but didn't say anything, because even now, they didn't dare to confirm what exactly was going on. If it was said that only a single person was passing through this stage and was able to calmly deal with it without showing any signs of weakening, then it would be too sensational. Or it should be. The middle-aged man on the left hesitated and spoke in an extremely uncertain tone. His eyes, which had always been as sharp as an eagle's, were now filled with a rare confusion. When he said this, he also asked himself in his heart, is this true or not? If it's just one person passing the test that caused such a commotion. The eyes of the middle-aged man on the right shone with respect and shock. Then the strength of this person, compared to the nine-nether first young master 10,000 years ago. Even if he's still not as strong, he's not too far off. The commotion we made when we passed through, even the most thrilling time, was only a fraction of what we're seeing now. Xiaoying exclaimed in shock. If that's the case, then this person's strength is many times stronger than ours. There really are people with such strength in this world. Even the 9 serenities and 14 masters definitely don't have such strength. Such a strong person can only be compared to the 9-nether first young master back then, although the 9-nether first young master was slightly stronger. In this world, there's no one who can match up to him. That's right. If there's really only one person passing through, and he's able to pass the test in the end, then this person's strength is indeed unparalleled in this world. He's truly worthy of the title of number 1 in the world. The two people on the left and right looked at the place where the lightning struck with a fanatical gaze. Their faces slowly became agitated. Xiao Ying rubbed her eyes and looked at her two companions. A look of disbelief surfaced in her eyes. Her cherry lips slowly widened, and she was dumbstruck. These two guards of hers were the peerless experts who stood at the peak of the world. This was the Heart Seal, Heavenly Sword, and Willful Wild Saber. This was too unbelievable, right? Xiao Ying felt that these two people might be imposters. Someone must have impersonated the Sky Sword and Invincible Saber to follow her. Sky Sword, Invincible Saber. The two great protectors of Heaven's Saint Palace. Two experts whose strength was definitely not inferior to the Palace Lord of Heaven's Saint Palace. Heart Seal, Heavenly Sword, Cheng Yin Xiao. Willful Wild Saber, Chu Wu Hui. These were two legends. The two legends of the Xian continent. Two great prides. Right now, these two people who were like legends were actually looking at the direction of the lightning with a look of reverence and worship. It was as if they were primary school students who had suddenly seen their idols in their dreams, prostrating themselves on the ground in reverence. Who was the one undergoing the tribulation under the lightning? Who was it? Was it a human or a monster? Whether it's a human or a monster, it's the indisputable number 1 under the heavens. As if he had seen through Xiao Ying's thoughts, Chu Wu Hui gave a faint conclusion. In the darkness far away, a black figure silently rose up. Under the endless darkness and flashes of lightning, this person was like a faint shadow, as if he had become one with the endless darkness around him. This person's figure was already less than 15 zhang away from the center of the lightning tribulation. This was already an extremely dangerous distance. As long as the area of the lightning tribulation expanded, he would have nowhere to run, even if he wanted to. Was it that had the ability to get so close to this place, and also had the guts to get so close to this place. If there was anyone in the world who had such courage and ability, it seemed that there was only one person, and the person who had come was this person, the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Right now, he was also looking at the center of the lightning tribulation from afar. He had a complicated look in his eyes as he muttered to himself. This person who triggered the heavenly punishment after breaking through and is currently devouring the might of the heavens and earth. Who is it in this world who has the ability to do so? The eyes of the 9 serenities and 14 masters were undoubtedly sharper than the others. Although the others were curious as to why there was no movement after the lightning tribulation struck, they could only guess that the person undergoing the tribulation had used his own strength to resolve the lightning tribulation. But they did not think of another possibility, or rather, they did not dare to think in that direction. But the 9 serenities and 14 masters was watching from a close distance and could see everything clearly. Those descending lightning tribulation had not been resolved by the person undergoing the tribulation, but had been directly devoured by that person. The most terrifying thing was that even at such a close distance, he still could not see what was there. There was clearly only a huge tree. The 9 serenities and 14 masters watched with a complicated look in his eyes. This display of the might of the heavens and earth had truly convinced this arrogant and self-proclaimed number 1 under the heavens. No matter who the person inside is, I'm not his match. I admit defeat. The moment this thought appeared in his mind, the 9 serenities and 14 masters almost wanted to die. It was extremely depressing, because he knew that he could not do what the person undergoing the tribulation had done. Even when he himself had a breakthrough, the 9 serenities and 14 masters could only forcefully endure the lightning tribulation, stay away from the crowd, and find an unlucky mountain peak. After every breakthrough, he would be covered in cuts and bruises, and the unlucky mountain peak would be erased from this world. But this mysterious expert in front of him could not only calmly undergo the tribulation, but could also silently devour the most violent energy in the world. What kind of huge gap was this? The 9 nether 14th young master stood there in a daze, staring blankly at the spot where the lightning had landed. He'd completely forgotten to conceal himself. Under the dancing lightning, the tall and lonely figure of the 9 serenities and 14 masters was also discovered by the experts from the 3 holy lands. It's him. Yes, it's that lunatic, the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Our most important target this time is also the most powerful and terrifying opponent. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked at the figure at the edge of the lightning. But at this time, the might of the heavens and earth was very strong, and no one dared to move recklessly. All the experts were turned into statues that could not be moved at all in the face of such an inconceivable event. No matter how much hatred there was between them, they had to live in harmony for the time being. In their ears, there was only the sound of the destructive thunder and the huge lightning that continued to rumble, almost ceaselessly striking down one after another. They were as dense as a downpour. Without stopping, they flew towards that direction, towards that mysterious expert, crazily chopping down. Everyone's hearts were also pounding at this moment. Whether it was the Holy Emperor, the saints, or the guardians, everyone's mouths were dry. What if the person who was resisting the heavenly might at the place where the lightning was striking was me? None of the experts dared to think about this. But the more they did not dare to think about it, the more they could not help but secretly fantasize about it. Every time they had this thought, they had to immediately suppress it. At the same time, their hearts would tremble with excitement. and their bodies would spasm as if they were being electrocuted under the watchful eyes of everyone. Even though the sound of the thunder in the sky was vast and powerful, there was still a time when it would weaken. Under the continuous consumption of the thunder and lightning, it finally weakened and finally disappeared completely. Then, the clouds in the sky changed, and the one that was surrounded by the stars had been replaced by another huge eye. Then, the other three huge eyes around it moved and merged into the one in the center after a series of waves, and even more ferocious thunder and lightning came pouring down like a waterfall. Oh my God! Am I going crazy, or is this world going crazy? The saint who spoke was trembling all over, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. This sentence was what everyone was thinking. What was unbelievable was that the second lightning strike lasted from dawn to noon, and then into the afternoon, and into the night. It actually lasted for an entire day. The pillar of lightning became thicker and thicker, and its strength also seemed to grow stronger and stronger, but did not cause any damage. Even the huge tree at the center of the lightning tribulation continued to stand tall, without the slightest change. Everyone stood there dumbfounded as they watched for the whole day. They did not eat, drink, or even blink for an entire day. Among these people, there were the three holy emperors, Zhanmu Bai, Hai Wuya, and He Xiao, as well as over 40 saints. There was also Qiao Ying, Cheng Yin Xiao, Chu Wu Hui, and the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Everyone seemed as if they were in a dream, their expressions as if they were talking in a dream. Finally, the thunder stopped abruptly. The lightning disappeared instantly. The dense dark clouds in the sky, in a trance, had already completely dispersed in an instant. Only then did everyone raise their heads. Only then did they realize that the sky was completely clear, filled with stars and a bright moon. This lightning tribulation actually lasted for an entire day. Cheng Yin Xiao groaned as his body flashed, disappearing from where he stood. Right now, he was going to pay his respects to that senior who was undergoing the tribulation. Today, no matter what, he had to see this senior who had reached the heavenly connection realm. There was only one goal. There was no evil intent, nor any utilitarian thoughts. There was only an extremely simple thought, or rather, a desire that came from the bottom of his heart. I want to see him. That was all. Perhaps, apart from this opportunity, he would never have the chance to see this person again, or even hear any news about this person. If he missed this opportunity, it would be the greatest regret of his life. Chu Wu Hui immediately came to his senses and chased after him like the wind. In his eyes, there was only fanaticism, and behind him, there was also Qiao Ying. Zhanmu Bai and the rest were also madly rushing in this direction. But the fastest was still 9 serenities and 14 masters. After all, he was too close to the scene of the tribulation, just a mere distance of a few dozen zhang. Before he could even use his movement technique, 9 serenities and 14 masters had already arrived under the tree. It was completely empty. Not even the shadow of a ghost could be seen. 9 serenities and 14 masters stretched out his hand and caressed the bark of this towering tree, his eyes burning with passion. So. Dozens of experts landed at the side and quickly formed a large circle. They looked quietly at this place and also at 9 serenities and 14 masters. But right now, in everyone's hearts, 9 serenities and 14 masters was not the main character. The main character had disappeared. Or could it be, was it this tree that was undergoing the tribulation? Was it this old elm tree that had lived for who knows how many years? Just as everyone was at a loss of what to do, Jun Moxie had already entered the Hongjun Pagoda with Mei Xuan. He did not forget that among these people, there was still Qiao Ying with the all-seeing eye. Although his cultivation had a huge breakthrough, whether or not he could make the other party's all-seeing eye lose its effect, Jun Moxie did not have the slightest bit of confidence. Moreover, even if he could be immune to it, Mei Xuan was still a beginner, and her unlocking heaven's fortune was still very shallow. Therefore, Junda Xiao might as well go all out and return to the Hongjun Pagoda to sleep. I'll let these people be shocked for a while longer. Besides, 9 serenities and 14 masters had arrived. If they could fight a round first, that would be the best thing. I definitely can't disturb such a good deal that's waiting to be taken advantage of. Chapter 873. The 9 serenities and 14 masters stood with his hands behind his back, as if he did not see the experts of the 3 holy lands slowly gathering around him. It was as if he did not care about them at all. He only made one movement, and that was to raise his head and stare fixedly at the sky, as if he was thinking hard about something. What was going on in front of him? The unforeseen event in front of him caused this peerless madman to sink into a deep confusion. Even though he faced the crowd and raised his head, everyone present could not see what his face looked like. It was as if it was just a hazy shadow. The moment Xiao Ying arrived, she had already activated her all-seeing eye and looked at the 9 serenities and 14 masters. She had to see through this demon's true face. It was rare for her to have such a good opportunity to see his true face from such a close distance. However, Xiao Ying was destined to be disappointed, because what she saw was still a thick fog. Her all-seeing eye that could see through all illusions was actually unable to see through the 9 serenities and 14 masters. This discovery caused Xiao Ying to be greatly shocked. 14th young master, it has been over 300 years since we last met. You are still as elegant as ever. This is truly worthy of celebration. Qingyin Xiao looked at the scene silently, then raised his head and smiled gently at the 9 serenities and 14 masters. His tone seemed to be respectful yet calm, but there was a hint of vigilance in it. Compared to the other people of the 3 holy lands who saw the 9 serenities and 14 masters as their mortal enemy, Qingyin Zhao's attitude was undoubtedly much gentler, because he knew that the position of the 9 serenities and 14 masters would always be ranked behind the strange races among all the enemies of the 3 holy lands, even though the threat he posed was even greater than the strange races. This was also the highest level of awareness of a guardian. Even though both sides still had a fight to the death, it was definitely not because of hatred, but because of their different ideologies. Qingyin Xiao, I remember you. You haven't changed much in appearance. You still look like you're on the verge of death. The 14th young master raised his head towards the sky, not looking at Qingyin Xiao, but calling out Qingyin Zhao's name. There's still me, 14th young master. Don't tell me that you only remember Lao, Cheng, and forgot about me. Chu Wu Hui said with a smile. How could I forget? Willful wild saber, Chu Wu Hui. This young master is truly regretful. 300 years ago, just as this young master was about to make you live up to your name, all my efforts were in vain. To think that you were lucky enough to return. The 14th young master's tone carried a hint of mockery. Bullshit. Chu Wu Hui roared and jumped up. That was because this daddy was careless and fell into your trap. Why don't we fight right now? Even if we fight another 10 rounds, you still won't be my match. 9 serenities and 14 masters snorted and said, Heaven St. Palace's sky, sword, and invincible blade. Their boss name is actually that of 2 scoundrels. However, these 2 scoundrels are at least a little stronger than those lowly scums below. This young master is very comforted. As he said that, 9 serenities and 14 masters' cold eyes stared at Zhang Mubai and the rest. The disdain in his eyes was obvious. Zhang Mubai was the holy emperor, but when he was stared at by 9 serenities and 14 masters' gaze, he felt his eyes hurt. It was as if they were being shone by a strong light, and his eyes were so sore that he wanted to cry. Qingyin Xiao laughed and said, If we're only scoundrels, then you, 9 serenities and 14 masters, can be considered a complete scoundrel. We're all the same. There's no need to be polite. 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed and said, As expected, you're not a hypocrite. You guys are here, and I'm also here. Looks like we'll have to fight eventually. Shall we do it here and now? Or should we do it another time? Cheng Shao smiled lightly and said, "Could it be that 14th young master can't wait any longer and wants to start a massacre? Old friends are right in front of you. Don't tell me you don't have any face to speak of? There are a few people who are destined to die. 9 serenities and 14 masters," Lang said. "Even if the entire world's face is piled in front of me, I'll kill them one by one. Furthermore, the face of the two of you has never been considered anything." "Dare I ask who exactly?" Chu Wu Hui asked in a deep voice. "What I despise the most in my life are those who launch sneak attacks and plot against others. What I despise the most is those who take advantage of others when they're down. Especially those who hold high positions but still use sneak attacks and plot against others. I won't let a single one of them off." 9 serenities and 14 masters said calmly. "I understand. You're referring to those few holy emperors who ambushed you after the seal in the Tian Fa forest was broken." Cheng Shao nodded his head lightly. 14th young master, dare I ask, if they don't use sneak attacks and fight you one-on-one, what are their chances of winning? What are their chances of survival? What a joke. If it's a fair fight, this young master will definitely snap their necks in the blink of an eye. Fighting me one-on-one. Are they even worthy? 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed maniacally. "That's right, they're really not worthy." Cheng Shao snorted. "Since you know that they're not your match in a head-on fight, why do you still want them to fight you openly and not use sneak attacks and plots against you? Everyone has their own standpoints. If you want to kill them, you have your reasons. If they want to plot against you, it's only right. 14th young master, if every one of them can defeat you head-on, who do you think would ambush you? It's precisely because they don't have the strength to fight you fairly, but they have a reason to kill you. If they don't ambush you, what other methods can they use?" 9 serenities and 14 masters snorted and said, "That's not wrong. Everyone has their own reasons. But after doing it, everyone has their own responsibilities to bear. If that's the case, if you want to kill, you can. But don't give your so-called reasons, because any reason is preposterous and laughable." Chu Wu Hui laughed coldly. "In this world, any reason can be refuted, regardless of whether it's righteous, dirty, or shameless. A reason is a reason. Even if it's to shirk responsibility, it's still the most dignified rubbish. Only strength is the best reason. And the real reason." He looked at 9 serenities and 14 masters and said slowly, "And you hold the real reason. So, being despicable and shameless is not the reason they should die. The real reason is your strength, and only your strength." 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed maniacally. Well said. Well said. Because of this reason, I won't fight with you today. I might as well let them live for a few more days, and let me make some preparations and cooperate with you. Huh? He was taught a lesson by these two, but he was not angry at all. But Cheng Shao and Chu Wu Hui's hearts sank. With 9 serenities and 14 masters of strength, what else did he need to prepare? Who did he need to cooperate with? This was a huge problem, but after the two looked at each other, they did not continue asking, because they knew that 9 serenities and 14 masters would definitely not say anything. They could only be more careful in the future. 14th young master, I have another question. Cheng Zhao's eyes became fervent. He had created this harmonious atmosphere just to ask this question. This was his dream. Who was that person just now? Cheng Shao took a step forward and looked at the tree in front of him. He asked again, who was the person who was here just now? The moment he asked this question, everyone's ears perked up. Everyone was relatively far away, with only 9 serenities and 14 masters standing the closest. Although the others did not see it, with 9 serenities and 14 masters' position and ability, he definitely saw it. Unfortunately, I'm not sure either. A strange expression appeared in 9 serenities and 14 masters' eyes. It seemed to be fear, but also admiration. He said calmly, I looked for a long time, but I did not see a single person here. From start to finish, I only saw the lightning strike the tree, and then it disappeared. He laughed bitterly and said, just now, when I got close, I tried to hit the tree, but I only pierced through it. As he said that, he flicked his sleeves, and powder flew everywhere. On the trunk of the old elm tree, there was a big hole that went straight from the front to the back. With this, everyone's suspicions were dispelled. But the question in their hearts was even greater. Who is it? No matter who it is, this person is definitely a peerless expert in the world, an invincible expert. Even this young master is ashamed of his inferiority. 9 serenities and 14 masters sighed with some disappointment. Cheng-Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui were both very clear about the meaning behind this sigh of the 9 nether 14th young master. All along, everyone believed that 9 serenities and 14 masters was the #1 expert in the world. Even the 9 nether 14th young master himself thought so. No one thought that he was arrogant, because there had never been an existence that could defeat 9 serenities and 14 masters. This was an indisputable fact. Thus, to deal with 9 serenities and 14 masters, it had always been a group of people ganging up on him. And it was not just 1 or 2 people ganging up on him. But now, such a person had appeared, causing even 9 serenities and 14 masters to feel ashamed of his inferiority. With just a single lightning tribulation, he had been chased down from the throne of #1. One could imagine how gloomy 9 serenities and 14 masters was feeling right now. I'm confident that I can endure that kind of power of heaven and earth just now, 9 serenities and 14 masters said heavily. But I can't do what he did. I'll never be able to do it. Devour the lightning tribulation. This was the end of the sentence that the 9 nether 14th young master silently added in his heart. Cheng-Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui looked at each other, feeling a sense of loss. 9 serenities and 14 masters thought for a while, then suddenly raised his head and asked, "You asked me a question, and I answered it. So, I'll also ask you a question, and you have to answer it." His gaze gradually became fierce, like 2 cruel swords piercing through the night sky. "What is it? As long as I know it, I'll answer it truthfully." Chu Wu Hui could hear the danger in 9 serenities and 14 masters' words. He knew that this question was not easy to answer, and his heart couldn't help but become heavy. This question was actually able to provoke 9 serenities and 14 masters' anger. Just based on this point alone, it was definitely not a simple question. 9 Firmament First Old Master. Who came up with this name? Whose idea was it? 9 serenities and 14 masters asked word by word. The fierce glint in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 874. 9 Firmament First Old Master. Cheng-Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui looked at each other. This was the first time they had heard of such a strange name. Although the two of them had several hundred years of experience and had instantly deduced that this strange name was the complete opposite of the 9 nether young masters, they still couldn't understand the mystery behind it, and couldn't help but be stunned. Who was the one who came up with this name? Answer me. The 9 nether 14th young master was filled with disdain towards Zhanmu Bai and the other saint emperors of the 3 holy lands. But he still trusted the people of the Heaven Saint Palace, who were a level higher. Because at the level of Cheng-Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui, they were already at the absolute peak of the world. They could not possibly lie, and were even more disdainful of lying, even to himself. The 9 nether 14th young master, who is the 9 Firmament First Old Master. Have you heard of him? Cheng-Yin Xiao looked at the crowd. Although he had already guessed that there was something strange about the 9 serenities and 14 masters asking about this name, he had not been involved in the affairs of the world for a long time. So he asked his subordinates. The name 9 Firmament First Old Master is not bad. Zhanmu Bai laughed. Right now, he really had nothing to worry about. Just now, the 9 serenities and 14 masters had clearly said that they would definitely not let him go. At the same time, he was very relieved because the 3 ultimate experts of Heaven Saint Palace were here. Xiao Ying, Cheng-Yin Xiao, and Chu Wu Hui. Even if the 9 serenities and 14 masters were to act on the spot, even if the chances of victory were not high, they would still be able to protect themselves. So right now, Zhanmu Bai's attitude could be said to be very relaxed. He said in a mocking tone, "The name 9 Firmament First Old Master? What a good name. She's really a perfect match for the 9 Nether 14th young master. Too perfect. Isn't it a perfect match? Then tell me, what kind of match is it? The 9 serenities and 14 masters said coldly. One is the 9 heavens, the other is the 9 nether. The former is high above, the sky above, the sky above, the earth below. Jean Mubai chuckled. It's really symmetrical. One was number 1, and the other was number 14. Regardless of seniority, they were absolute opposites. In the end, one was the young master, and the other was the master. Ha! Jean Mubai suddenly burst into wild laughter. He laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out his eyes. He rocked back and forth. Young master is the junior. Old master is the ancestor. There was a difference in seniority. It's at least 3 generations. That's so little. Whether it's the difference between heaven and earth, or the difference between 1 and 14, it's much smaller. What a huge improvement. Ha ha, what a joke. Suddenly, pa, a crisp sound rang out. It was Jean Mubai who had been slapped hard on the face. This slap caused his entire body to instantly lose its center of gravity. His body slanted sideways as he staggered backwards. But the second slap that followed immediately caused him to come back. The 9 serenities and 14 masters suddenly made a move. Although Chu Wu Hui and the rest were already on guard, they were completely unable to stop it. They could only watch helplessly as he slapped Jean Mubai again and again, unable to react in time. This speed could be said to be unparalleled in the world. Just as Jean Mubai was about to let out a roar, he suddenly felt his throat being gripped by a large hand. His entire body was lifted off the ground, and his entire body was lifted up high. At the same time, a vast and uncontrollable force seeped into his meridians like the fangs of a ghost. It instantly controlled his meridians, extended to his dantian, and locked onto his vital points. All of his Xian Qi was firmly controlled. At the same time, every single part of his body that could move was firmly controlled. In just the blink of an eye, Jean Mubai had fallen from a high and mighty, holy emperor to a wretched state where he could not even control his own life or death. 14th young master, please stop, we could talk things out. Chengyin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui stepped forward at the same time. The two of them did not have the time to stop it, and their hearts were already trembling. When they saw the 9 Nether 14th young master's exquisite methods, completely controlling a 3rd-level Saint Emperor in an instant, they couldn't help but be greatly shocked. Stop. If anyone dares to take another step forward, I will bathe the 3 holy lands in blood. The 9 serenities and 14 masters furrowed his brows and laughed coldly. With a wave of his hand, the space in front of him was sliced into 2. With just a simple wave, he and Jean Mubai had already entered another space. Chengyin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui were less than half a zhang away from the 9 serenities and 14 masters. They only needed to stretch out their hands, and they would be able to touch the body of the 9 serenities and 14 masters. But this distance of half a zhang was like the distance between heaven and earth. This was the true, so close, yet worlds apart technique. With a wave of his finger, the space was shattered. This was not a legend, a myth, nor was it a boast. It had actually happened right in front of their eyes. Chengyin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui both sucked in a breath of cold air. Just from this technique alone, the 9 serenities and 14 masters had recovered at least 80% of his strength. The 9 serenities and 14 masters who had recovered 80% of their strength was already not someone that the two of them could contend against. It was not difficult for the two of them to break through the spatial barrier of the 9 serenities and 14 masters if they worked together. But they would need at least half the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Half the time it took to brew a cup of tea did not seem long, but at this moment, even the blink of an eye was too long. If they really waited for half the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the dish would have already turned cold. Furthermore, if the two of them really went over, then, no matter if it was too late or not, the matter of bathing the 3 holy lands in blood that the 9 serenities and 14 masters had mentioned would become a fact. With the strength of the 9 serenities and 14 masters, he was completely capable of doing it. This was a pure lunatic. There was nothing in this world that he did not dare to do. Although it was a naked threat, the two of them had no choice but to submit. The two of them stopped their movements at the same time and called out, "Brother 14, please show mercy. Now is not the time for you to kill Jean Moubai." I did not say that I would kill him, at least not now. The 9 serenities and 14 masters' expression was extremely indifferent as he said, "I just want to ask him a few questions. Don't worry, with the 3 of you here, even if I really want to kill someone, I will only kill the 3 of you first. Why would I lower myself to kill this piece of trash? He is not worthy of it now. Far from it." The 9 serenities and 14 masters grabbed Jean Moubai's neck with one hand and lifted his feet off the ground. He said coldly, "You piece of trash, do you know the 9 firmament first master?" Jean Moubai was a holy emperor of a generation. His cultivation was extremely high and his status was extremely respected. In front of the 9 serenities and 14 masters, he did not have the slightest ability to resist at all. He was like a child being held in the hands of an adult and being wantonly shaken. Moreover, he was being called a piece of trash. One could imagine the humiliation. He knew that his estimation was completely wrong. The 9 serenities and 14 masters had already recovered. He originally thought that the 9 serenities and 14 masters' internal injuries had not healed and wanted to use their sharp tongue to agitate him so that everyone would gang up on him. With the 3 guardians here, it could be said to be a heaven-sent opportunity. However, the 3 guardians actually did not stop the 9 serenities and 14 masters from attacking him. This made Jean Moubai's heart instantly turn cold. In the face of such a predicament, Jean Moubai was still able to calm his mind. He panted with difficulty and laughed. The 9 firmament first master? I don't know this name. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. There was a crazy glee in Jean Moubai's eyes. At this moment, he had already been humiliated by him. Now, he no longer cared about his life or death. However, he could also see that the 9 serenities and 14 masters cared a lot about the name, the 9 firmament first master. Just from the literal meaning, the 9 firmament first master and the 9 serenities and 14 masters were simply opposites. This name was undoubtedly a thorn in the heart of the 9 serenities and 14 masters. How could Jean Moubai let go of such an opportunity to make his enemies suffer? Even if I can't beat you, I finally know how to disgust you. Anyway, I have no hope of surviving. Why should I let you live? Before I die, I will do my best to disgust you. Good. You have guts. The 9 serenities and 14 masters clenched his fist, and a scorching hot stream of air instantly drilled into Jean Moubai's meridians. Jean Moubai suddenly felt that the blood in his body was about to boil, and even his brain was about to explode. This was unparalleled pain. The cruelest punishment in the world was probably no better than this. Jean Moubai could no longer maintain his composure. With a blood-curdling scream, he fainted weakly. However, the next moment, this stream of air instantly turned into a bone-chilling cold. It directly froze him awake. His mind was extremely clear, but his body was almost frozen. His blood, which was almost boiling, suddenly fell back to the freezing point. A thick layer of white frost condensed on Jean Moubai's body at a speed visible to the naked eye. I only want to know how the name 9 Firmament's first master came about. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters looked at him coldly. Tell me, and I will let you go. Since there's a 9 nether 14th young master in this world, there'll naturally be the 9 Firmament's number 1. Grandpa, Jean Moubai coughed, and a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Immediately, it froze into an eye-catching blood-colored ice cube, freezing at the side of his mouth. But he laughed evilly. It's that simple. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' eyes focused, and the aura in his body suddenly erupted. In an instant, the blood in Jean Moubai's body was completely unfrozen and immediately boiled again. Then it cooled down at the peak of boiling and turned into the 9 serenities cold ice. This repeated over a dozen times in a row. Jean Mubai fell into such a cycle of ice and fire. He died and came back to life, and the pain was unbearable. In the end, he couldn't even let out a scream. I said, "Before I defeat the 3 guardians today, I will not kill you. I will not go back on my words." The 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed coldly. However, this little bit of interest must be taken first. Even if you live, it will be a life that is worse than death. He laughed loudly. However, you still have to cherish it. Even if you live like this, you will only have this last night. Slowly savor the aftertaste. After saying that, the 9 serenities and 14 masters shook his hand, and Jean Mubai's body flew out of his hand and into the crowd of people from the 3 holy lands. Hai Wuya stepped forward and stretched out his arms to catch Jean Mubai. However, when he caught Jean Mubai, his body shook violently, as if he had been hit in the chest by a heavy iron hammer. He could not help but stagger back more than 10 steps, and with every step he took, a huge pit appeared, and the ground cracked. When he finally stabilized himself, his face was already pale, and then it turned red. With a wah sound, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The 9 Nether 14th young master soared into the sky, his black silhouette soaring into the sky. Heart-seal heavenly sword Chung In Shao, willful wild saber Chu Wu Hui, all-seeing Rakshasa Qiaoing. Come and fight with this young master. The black figure flashed in the sky, and the entire sky was filled with thousands of shadows of the 9 serenities and 14 masters. They came and went, and came and went, and came and went, but the original body of the 9 serenities and 14 masters was no longer here. Chung In Shao and the other 2 looked at each other and laughed. Since the 14th young master is in such a good mood, the 3 of us will naturally accompany you. The 3 of them were not afraid. Their figures flashed, and they chased after the 9 serenities and 14 masters. The 9 serenities and 14 masters did not continue to ask about the 9 firmament first old master. Instead, he immediately issued a challenge. His meaning was very clear. First defeat these 3 people, then he would immediately return and kill Jean Mubai. No matter what, he would not allow Jean Mubai to live. As for the matter of the 9 firmament first old master, the 9 serenities and 14 masters could see that these people in front of him really did not know. Although Jean Mubai had used this name to attack him with vicious words, the 9 serenities and 14 masters knew that if there really was such a person, and if Jean Mubai knew about it, his words would definitely be even more unpleasant. It seemed like he could only investigate carefully after today's matter. If he still could not find any clues, he could only look for the 9 firmament first old master and ask him what his intentions were in creating this mystery. As for Chung In Shao, Chu Wu Hui, and the other 2, they had no other choice. The 9 serenities and 14 masters had already issued a challenge in a fit of rage. With their status, even if they knew that they were no match for Jean Mubai, even if they knew that they would definitely die, they still had to accept the challenge. Furthermore, no matter what, Jean Mubai was still a subordinate of the Holy Lands. Now that he had been abused to this extent, they had to seek justice. Whether or not they could do it was one thing, but whether or not they would do it was another matter. Otherwise, the reputation of the 3 Holy Lands would be completely destroyed today. So the 3 of them had no other choice. 4 figures flashed across the night sky like shooting stars, disappearing to an unknown place. The other experts of the 3 Holy Lands looked at the deformed Jean Mubai in Hai Wuya's arms, their faces filled with rage. The 9 serenities and 14 masters had actually humiliated the Holy Emperor in front of so many people. And it was done so wantonly in front of so many experts of the 3 Holy Lands. This was equivalent to giving the 3 Holy Lands a resounding slap in the face. If he did not leave, even if they knew that they were no match for him, they would still gang up on him. He would use his own life to redeem the dignity of the Holy Lands. Just at this time, Just as everyone was feeling indignant, a wave of exclamations rang out. Everyone's eyes widened. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. An even more inconceivable thing slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Not even 10 feet in front of the group, a wall of mud suddenly rose up from the ground, swaying and swaying. From nothingness, it appeared just like that. This piece of earth seemed to suddenly have a life of its own, growing endlessly. The wall of earth slowly rose up, and the side facing everyone actually became as smooth and flat as a stone tablet. Finally, it transformed into a 5 zhang tall, 3 zhang wide wall. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, there was a new change on this wide wall of earth. Every word was written in a flamboyant style. It was as if there was an invisible ghost, God, calmly splashing ink on it. The top 4 words appeared one by one. Although the handwriting was light and vigorous, it looked as heavy as a mountain. It was like a bolt of lightning, heavily striking everyone's hearts. Everyone's eyes widened for extremely arrogant words. Evil monarch lord. As expected, I caught a cold. My body temperature is not very high, only 37, 8 degrees Celsius, but my head feels like it's going to split open. I force myself to write 4,000 words, and my head is extremely heavy. Just wiping my nose, I almost used up a roll of toilet paper. I'm very depressed. I worked hard for a month, sprinted for half a month, and in these last 2 days, I actually caught a cold. Why is it that, at this crucial moment, I'm very depressed? Very depressed. I really don't have any energy left. Right now, my whole body is covered in cold sweat, and I'm lying down. The weather has changed drastically these few days. Everyone, take care of your body. Don't be like me. Chapter 875. Hai Wuya and the rest stared at the wall that had suddenly appeared in front of their eyes, and the words that had appeared out of nowhere. All of them were completely dumbfounded. Even though they were all old monsters that had lived for hundreds of years, they had never seen such an inconceivable scene before. Furthermore, what exactly did these words mean? Evil monarch? Just from the looks of it, it seemed like someone's name or nickname. However, they had never heard of such a person in this world before. Just what kind of person did this name represent? In this world, the word evil naturally meant evil. But from ancient times until now, who could claim to be a monarch? If there really was such a monarch, how could he be unknown and unknown? Wouldn't he have long been famous throughout the world? Right now, the name of this mysterious evil monarch had suddenly appeared here. What was the meaning of this? Could it be that the person who had just undergone the tribulation was the evil monarch? Just as everyone was muttering in their hearts, the words on the wall suddenly shone brightly, dazzling everyone's eyes. The words that had appeared on the wall actually turned into a dazzling golden color in an instant. In that instant, the words actually became exceptionally bright and dazzling in the darkness of the night. Hai Wuya, Hiji Chio, and the rest were completely dumbfounded. There's actually such a change? Could it be that there really are ghosts and gods in this world? Or could it be that the strength of the person who had just undergone the tribulation was too strong, and even the heavens and earth wanted to testify for him? This kind of unimaginable and peculiar change had obviously exceeded the understanding of everyone present. But what followed next was another flash of golden light. The words once again turned illusory, and the experts of the 3 holy lands all turned from shock to solemnity, and then to rage. Extreme rage. First, a large seal character appeared in the air and occupied the center position. Fight. Of all the evils in the world, I am the monarch, sweeping across the world, looking down on the pugilistic world. Wherever the evil monarch goes, gods howl and ghosts cry. A laugh at the universe, a glance at the present and the past. Truly, truly arrogant words. Hiji Chio snorted coldly as he made his evaluation of this mysterious, evil monarch. Everyone present had the same feeling in their hearts. These words were simply too arrogant. Who does he think he is? However, Everyone knew that the sudden appearance of these abnormalities was obviously not for the sake of boasting about his strength. Just the strength that he had just overcome the lightning tribulation was already sufficient to explain everything. Now that these unforeseen events had appeared, there was definitely another motive behind it. Right now, he still had to wait. Sure enough, the following words confirmed everyone's guess. If the Holy Lands are unscrupulous, the evil monarch will punish them. Killing a saint with one sword is the beginning. So the mysterious assassination of Xia Dongting was actually done by this evil monarch, punching the elusive world palace and kicking the supreme city. When I have nothing better to do, I'll use a blood-sea void palm. The hypocrites of the human world shall die without a burial ground. The Holy Lands are full of scoundrels, but they shall all be sent to the afterlife. The world shall rejoice, and the seas shall be at peace. Only I, the evil king, shall reign supreme in the world. How arrogant! How arrogant! What a bastard! He Qiu cursed angrily. Everyone else was also in an uproar. The words of this evil monarch were simply boundlessly arrogant. Even if your strength is shocking, can you really go against the 3 holy lands that have stood at the peak of the Xian Peak for tens of thousands of years? People of the Holy Lands, if you have the guts, wait at the south side of the city tomorrow morning. One battle to decide life and death. One battle to settle all grudges. When the sun rises in Dongfang, it shall be the time when the heads of the Holy Lands will be separated from their bodies. The evil monarch awaits your arrival, and will specially send everyone to the netherworld together. The road to the Yellow Springs is long, and the gates of life and death are open. Everyone, be careful not to miss the hour. If you do, you will inevitably become a wandering ghost. The words on the wall ended here. The experts of the 3 holy lands were so furious that their stomachs were about to explode. In this world, there is actually such an arrogant person against the 3 holy lands. Tomorrow morning, evil monarch, final battle. Haiwei slowly recited these words. Compared to the others, he was much more rational and calm. Facing this strange earthen wall, Haiwei was shocked and furious, but he also felt a deep chill in his heart. The cowardly thoughts that he had long forgotten suddenly reappeared at this moment. If the other party did not have the confidence, why would he issue such a challenge? That's right. Hijicho also calmed down amidst his rage and said slowly, "This will definitely be a tough battle. The outcome of this battle is really... The timing that this evil monarch has chosen is truly too opportune." Haiwei laughed bitterly. More than half of our experts that came to Chrysanthemum City have already been dispersed. It can be said that our strength is at its weakest right now. But he just had to choose such a critical moment. This makes this old man feel that the situation is not good. It's not just not good, it's extremely bad. Hijicho said solemnly. The previous incident caused the reinforcements from the misty, illusory manor to fall out with each other and leave, becoming enemies with our side. Our weapons were also lost at that time. Now, Brother Jean has also been attacked by the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, and even you, Brother Hai, have suffered some internal injuries. The 3 Guardians that we've been relying on have also been challenged by the 9 Nether 14th Young Master. And now, this mysterious evil monarch with unfathomable strength has suddenly suggested a decisive battle. Hijicho let out a long sigh and said, "And we still do not know who this evil monarch is. In fact, we have not even heard of him before this. This battle is really too strange. If he is really the person who went through the tribulation earlier, doesn't that mean that we do not have much time left?" Everyone is clear about this point. However, this battle is inevitable. Haiwei laughed bitterly. Just like how the 3 Guardians had no choice but to accept the challenge from the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, we also cannot reject the evil monarch's challenge this time. For the sake of the Holy Land's 10,000 years of reputation, we must not retreat. We would rather die in battle than cower. Hijichio's eyes gazed into the distant night sky as he solemnly said, "Leave 2 people behind to take care of Brother Jean. The rest of you, let's go together." Hai Wuya said, "This opponent may be extremely strong, but he may not be the senior who went through the tribulation earlier. Furthermore, there is a limit to a person's strength, and he is only one person. In terms of the number of experts, he will not be able to compare to our 3 holy lands. This battle may not be completely without a chance of victory. If we can gang up on him, the battle tactics that we used against the 9 serenities and 14 masters may be used today." Hijichio was stunned for a moment before nodding his head slowly. "I will go as well," a weak voice said. The 2 of them turned around and saw that the one who spoke was actually Jean Mubai. When the 2 of them saw Jean Mubai's current appearance, they could not help but be shocked. Hai Wuya's body even began to tremble slightly. Right now, Jean Mubai's appearance could be said to be extremely pitiful. The left half of his body was burning hot, while the right half was covered in a layer of frost. From his face all the way to his feet, it was a situation where both ice and fire were symmetrical. And in just an hour, the right half of his body was burning hot, while the left half was freezing cold, and this cycle repeated itself. The methods of the 9 serenities and 14 masters were truly vicious to the extreme. This was his unique method. The 9 serenities' blazing flames and 9 serenities' frigid winds were used on Jean Mubai's body at the same time. Every hour it would be changed. This had a name, yin-yang refining soul. This kind of yin-yang refining soul could last for a full day and a night. In this one day and night, the person being tortured would feel as if they were going back and forth in the 18 levels of hell. This was publicly acknowledged as the most cruel punishment in the world. Although it was impossible to beg for life, it was also impossible to beg for death. When the 9 serenities and 14 masters had released him previously, it was not because they wanted to let Jean Mubai off, but because they wanted to torture and ravage him. Under such extreme pain, Jean Mubai had to endure great pain with every word he said. "In this state, I won't be able to hold on until tomorrow." Jean Mubai trembled and said hatefully, "Rather than being toyed to death by the strange methods of the 9 serenities and 14 masters, I would rather fight it out with that evil monarch. Perhaps I can still be of some use. Brothers, I am already powerless for the battle tomorrow morning, but you have to help me. Help me activate the blood-bursting body splitting technique. Let me die a more dignified death." Blood-bursting body splitting technique. Hai Wuya and Hijichio felt as if they had been struck by lightning. "Brother Jean, you clearly know that you only need to endure for a day and night, and your cultivation will have a chance to recover. Why do you have to resort to such a method?" Jean Mubai laughed bitterly. "This time I have encountered so many things. Everyone has seen it with their own eyes. Brothers, do you think that I, Jean Mubai, still have the face to continue living? Not to mention the death threat from the 9 serenities and 14 masters, just the thickness of my face alone." Speaking up to here, he suddenly roared, "I, Jean Mubai, am really living a life worse than death." Jean Mubai's profound Xian cultivation had long been unable to be used. This sentence was completely shouted out with his own strength. His voice was hoarse, but it was filled with despair and humiliation. Jean Mubai's heart was already filled with the desire to die. Hai Wuya and Hijichio stood there blankly, their hearts as heavy as lead. They looked at each other, unable to say a word. The night quietly slipped away. In a hazy dawn, the experts of the 3 holy lands, led by Hijichio and Hai Wuya, quietly walked out of Chrysanthemum City's south gate. There was a soft couch in the middle of this group of people. Jean Mubai sat on it with his back straight. The left side of his face was red, and the right side was deathly pale. His body was trembling uncontrollably, and the muscles all over his body were also convulsing inch by inch. But Jean Mubai's hair was combed neatly, and his clothes were also spotless. His eyes were filled with killing intent and determination. Today's fever reached 38.5 degrees Celsius and a splitting headache. The 99 coal granule and white and black were both taken twice, but it didn't have any effect at all. Yesterday, it was more than 37 degrees Celsius, but today it was even higher. There's no other way. I'll start an infusion this afternoon. Now, sitting in front of the computer and writing, I feel extremely uncomfortable. My head hurts and my temples are throbbing. My head is heavy like a lead weight, and I really want to smash the keyboard and fall asleep. But I've already slept for nearly 15 hours today. Sigh. I'm working hard on the second update, but I don't know if I can send it before midnight. What I'm doing is nothing more than persevering. I hope my brothers and sisters can give me the motivation to persevere. Chapter 876. The 3 guardians and the 9 serenities and 14 masters had already gone somewhere to fight. Hijichio only left a letter for them. Finally, they each sent a message to the Holy Land. At the end of the message to Hermitage, Jean Mubai dictated this sentence: "The glory of the Holy Land, since ancient times, has never been blasphemed by anyone. I, Jean, will defend this glory with my life. After 1,000 years of reunion, there will be parting in the end. Mubai will bid farewell today." The soft couch swayed. Jean Mubai closed his eyes slightly. He actually felt all kinds of scenes of his life flashing past his eyes. It was said that when a person was about to die, they would see the scenes of their life as if time was flowing backwards. It seemed like the next moment might be the end of his life. Jean Mubai was not a legitimate son of the Jean family. He was the son of a concubine. When he was young, he suffered the disdain of countless people. Fortunately, his talent was extremely high, and he endured it all the way. When he was 18 years old, he finally came out on top in the family martial arts competition, shocking everyone with a single brilliant feat. Jean Mubai, who rose to fame, received the attention of the elders of the family, but also attracted the hostility of the direct descendants of the Jean family. The continuous persecution caused his parents to die, and he suffered great humiliation. He endured the humiliation and luckily escaped the Jean family. After that, he met a master by chance and trained hard day and night. 20 years later, Jean Mubai, who had reached the 3rd level of Shenxian, came back to the Jean family to take revenge and kill all those who had persecuted him in the past. Not a single one was spared. Thinking of this, Jean Mubai, in the extreme torture of the yin-yang soul refining technique, still revealed a trace of a happy smile. He thought about how the culprit who had destroyed his family had trembled under his hands, and how his blood had flowed out bit by bit. He thought about how the woman he doted on the most was moaning in pain under his body. That fair skin, the tears on that beautiful face that had been distorted. In the end, he had severed her neck with a single slash, and the look of disbelief in her eyes, the kind of joy at that moment, Jean Mubai almost forgot all the pain he was suffering. That period of time was the most exhilarating period of his life. Everyone in the Jean family kept quiet out of fear. Jean Mubai relied on his superhuman strength and cruel methods to obtain absolute authority, becoming the youngest family head in the history of the Jean family. After that, Jean Mubai led the Jean family to fight in the pugilistic world, growing stronger step by step, allowing the Jean family to smoothly become a first-rate family at that time. And at this time, he received an invitation from Hermitage, summoning him to enter Hermitage to cultivate. With the support of the 3 Holy Lands, the Jean family's development became faster and faster. In the past few hundred years, the Jean family had long become a powerful force. As for Jean Mubai himself, he became a venerable, then a saint, then a holy emperor. From a hermitage, he became a member of the Heaven Saint Palace. A lifetime of glory, a lifetime of brilliance, a lifetime of obstinacy. Perhaps there were some things that he had done wrong, but so what? This world was like this. The strong preyed on the weak. There was nothing more to say. In this life, there were gains and no losses. It was enough. Jean Mubai smiled in pain. He half lay on the soft couch, letting the couch carry him as he walked step by step towards the end of his life. He did not think about the battle this time. He only thought about his life again and again in his heart, just like recently killing the entire Chen family. Was he wrong? No, he was wrong. He could only blame the Chun family's foundation for being too weak. And such a weak family actually saw the shameful deeds of the Holy Emperor. If that wasn't death, then what was it? A pity. The war for seizing the heavens. I've dreamed of the war for seizing the heavens for hundreds of years. This is the battle of heroes in the history of mankind, the ultimate battle that will go down in history for tens of thousands of years. Jean Mubai, won't be able to make it in time. Perhaps this is the only and biggest regret in my life. 80 li south of the city, on a small mountain. After passing this small mountain, there was a huge mountain ahead. In front of the mountain, there was a green bamboo forest swaying gently in the wind. In front of the bamboo forest, there was a huge clearing. In the center of the clearing, there was a huge stone tablet that was 10 zhang tall. On it was carved, "The burial ground of 35 experts from the 3 holy lands. Your illustrious name will live on forever." Almost at the same time, everyone stopped in their tracks, their eyes spitting out thick flames of anger. The number of people who came this time was exactly 35. Looks like the other party was very clear about their whereabouts. In fact, they even knew that Jean Mubai would definitely come. The bamboo forest was silent, and there was no one in sight. The other party still hasn't come? He Jiqiu laughed coldly and said, "This stone tablet is really laughable." He laughed loudly and leaped out. He did not touch the words on the stone tablet, but used his xianqi to carve a few words on the back of the tablet. "The burial ground of the evil monarch." After thinking for a while, he added another small line of words. "The evil monarch, shameless to the extreme." Not knowing his own limits, he had the guts to challenge the glorious Holy Lands. He only had crafty tricks, but no real strength. In the end, he was defeated and died, becoming the laughingstock of the ages. After he finished carving, He Jiqiu roared and circulated his xianqi again. With a twist of his hands, the huge stone tablet actually turned around, and the original back became the front. Ha! Not bad, the laughingstock of the ages, the laughingstock of the ages, the evil monarch. Brother He, the words you wrote are really satisfying. But why didn't you erase the original words? Instead, you spent more effort to turn it around? Hai Wei laughed. The other experts from the 3 holy lands also felt their spirits lift, and they all cheered. He Jiqiu laughed lightly. Today's battle is a battle of life and death. At the end of this battle, only one side will be able to leave this place alive. By doing this, I mean that the moment the living side leaves, it will be the moment their names are erased from this stone tablet. If we erase those words now, it will seem like we don't have the confidence to win. Let's just leave it like this, and it won't be too late to erase it after we've collected their corpses. Not bad, not bad. Brother He's words are correct. Hai Wei laughed heartily. There is no reason for us to lose this battle. Let that evil monarch taste the bitter fruit of his own making. The experts of the 3 holy lands roared in agreement, their morale soaring. The last bit of darkness in the sky finally disappeared completely. Dongfang's eyes were already completely white. The light of dawn was clearly about to appear. Right now, it was already sunrise over Dongfang. This was the time that the evil monarch had set, but the people of the 3 holy lands were also looking forward to this moment. After this moment, all the mysteries would be solved. The mysterious enemy that had been hiding all this time would finally reveal his true face. Whether that mysterious enemy was a frighteningly strong expert who had passed the tribulation, or someone else, everything would be settled. Therefore, they were all waiting quietly. Every single one of these people was a veteran who had been through hundreds of battles. Not a single one of them wasn't an old fox that couldn't be any more old. They didn't have the slightest bit of impatience on their faces, and there was only a calm expression on their faces. Regardless of life or death, they had already seen through it long ago. Even the Jean Mubai, who had always been in extreme pain, had a calm expression on his face when the sun was about to rise. Although that calmness looked so comical on his half-red, half-green face. but it also displayed the unyielding determination of this holy Emperor Jean. Pairs of sharp, eagle-like eyes stared silently at the bamboo forest in front of them. No one looked in the other three directions, because there was no need. The light of dawn descended upon the land, and Dongfang was finally bright. The rustling of footsteps rang out, neat and quick. From the left and right, two groups of people walked over at the same time. Fast and light, like two wisps of green smoke, they swept across the land and arrived in front of the bamboo forest in an instant. Each group had 36 people, and the two groups had a total of 72 people. They walked over in such an orderly manner, their eyes looking straight ahead, displaying the strict discipline of an army. Hai Wuya and He Jiqiu looked at these 72 people, and their faces slowly darkened. They didn't need to look at each other's faces to know the incomparable shock in each other's hearts. So the other party wasn't just one person, and their strength was also quite impressive. Furthermore, the people who came were all experts, top-notch experts. Amongst these 72 people, the weakest had reached the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm. There were 19 4th-level Venerables, 31 1st-level Saints, and almost 22nd-level Saints. As for the two leaders, they were actually 3rd-level Saints. Just these 72 people were already an extremely impressive and enormous force. In the current world, there was actually such a force. How did they hide from the eyes and ears of the 3 Holy Lands? In fact, they had even hidden it from the entire world. This kind of strength was not something that could be produced in a year or two. This kind of strength required a long period of accumulation, at least 200 to 300 years to create such a force. How did they do it? In an instant, all the experts from the 3 Holy Lands looked at each other in dismay. They were all so shocked that they couldn't speak. If there was only one opponent, even if that person's strength was extremely high, even if that person was above the 9 serenities and 14 masters, or that peerless expert who had passed the lightning tribulation, they might not be as shocked as they were now. Since when did this world have so many peak experts? What kind of force did these people belong to? Why did it seem like they had suddenly fallen from the sky, and the 3 Holy Lands actually had no idea? How was this possible? What was going on? Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the 72 experts neared, and with a low command, they neatly formed into 2 triangular formations, spreading out like the wings of a goose. Everyone stood respectfully, leaving a relatively wide path in the middle. As if they were waiting for something, the position that they had opened up was also the core position. Could it be that the main character had not arrived yet? Hai Wuya and He Jiqiu looked at each other, both feeling that their palms were sweating. The heaviness and nervousness in their hearts were something that even with their thousands of years of experience, they could not control. The sound of orderly footsteps rang out once more, and in the distance, 8 teams appeared at almost the same time. There were about 30 people in each team, and they were flying rapidly towards the direction where the 2 sides were facing each other. Although those 8 teams were advancing at high speed, they still maintained an unusually orderly formation, meticulous, and not the slightest bit disorderly. Like 8 sharp arrows, they shot toward this place at high speed. In a flash, they had already arrived. The person in the lead lightly shouted, "Formation!" Close to 300 people changed their formation in a dazzling manner, perfectly merging with the original 2 triangular formations. The formation also transformed into 2 large triangular formations. It was still in the shape of a goose's wing. The 2 people in the lead, one dressed in black like ink, the other in white like snow. Grassland Eagle God, Solitary Eagle. Hurricane, Sword God Feng Wanyun. But now, these 2 people had already advanced to the peak of 4th level Saints, only a step away from the Holy Emperor's level. As for the 8 teams that they had brought with them, each of their cultivations were on par with the previous 2 teams. Including the leaders, there were a total of 308 people. Looking at them one by one, Hai Wuya and He Jiqiu were on the verge of collapse. All of them were experts above the venerable level. Among them, There were 2 4th-level saints, 6 3rd-level saints, 92nd-level saints, 171st-level saints, 33 4th-level venerables, 7 3rd-level venerables. This was simply unbelievable. Could it be that we're in the worst nightmare? Even the 3 Holy Lands did not have so many experts with such average strength. This terrifying strength was enough to sweep through the entire Xian continent. And even if the Heaven Saint Palace did not make a move, this strength was enough to sweep through the 3 Holy Lands. The degree of threat it posed had already surpassed the strange races. After all of the Holy Emperor's level experts belonged to the Heaven Saint Palace. Since when did such a force appear in this world? The experts of the Holy Lands all felt a little dazed. These people were still waiting for the arrival of their leader. In other words, all of these people were under the control of one person. It was a force that belonged to one person. This kind of understanding caused the Holy Emperor's saints of the 3 Holy Lands to feel a chill down their spines. This person was so patient, with such strength. The 3 Holy Lands were in danger. Who were they waiting for? No matter who it was definitely an unparalleled hero. Following a light laugh, 2 people suddenly appeared in the green bamboo forest. A man and a woman, a pair of immortal lovers. Both of them were dressed in clothes whiter than snow. The man was handsome and suave, like a jade tree in the wind, while the woman was peerless in her generation, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Just like that, the 2 of them walked out from the green bamboo forest step by step, walking on the path that the 2 teams had specially left open, their light robes fluttering in the wind, leisurely and carefree, like a pair of golden boy and jade girl walking in the green. When the over 300 experts on both sides saw these 2 people, their faces revealed a look of respect. It was as if they had seen the gods in their hearts. Suddenly, Jean Mubai, who was sitting on the soft couch, had a look of shock on his face. As if he had seen a ghost, he cried out, "June Moxie! That's June Moxie! Finally done. We'll continue tomorrow. I'm going to sleep. I just drank 2 packets of medicine. I'm going to bed to wipe away my sweat. Later on, I'll issue a ticket request for March, which contains next month's update plan. I hope everyone can take a look, and also here I'll reserve everyone's guaranteed monthly tickets for next month." Chapter 877. The experts of the 3 Holy Lands all gasped in shock, because the 2 people who had walked out from the bamboo forest had really shocked them to the point that they couldn't speak. In the impression of the 3 Holy Lands, that man and woman had once been the biggest thorn in their side, a thorn in their flesh, a scourge that must be eradicated, must be eliminated as soon as possible. There was even a period of time when the 3 Holy Lands had completely let go of these 2 scourges. There was no other reason, but the 2 people who could pose the greatest threat to them had already been confirmed dead. One had died under the siege of 3 saints, perishing together with 3 other saints. The other had died in the Tian Fa Forest base camp, and was even killed by the Holy Emperor Jean Mubai's personal sneak attack. During that time, he had even spared the Qian Sun's Serpent Queen. In short, these 2 people had already become dead people, and had become the past. Calculating it, the 3 Holy Lands seemed to have spent close to 3 months in peace. But right now, at this moment, it was as if the entire world had been turned upside down. The great enemy that they thought had already become the past, a memory, and a history had actually come back to life. He was standing right in front of them, alive and well, and his cultivation had improved greatly. How could Jean Mubai not be shocked? How could he not be shocked? He looked at that familiar young face that flashed in front of him again, and it was as if he had been hit in the head by a heavy stick, causing him to feel dizzy. Even the calmness that he had forced himself to pretend to be had completely vanished in an instant, disappearing without a trace. Jean Mubai. Holy Emperor Jean, are you very surprised? Look at that green and red old face of yours. Although it's a rather unexpected matter, it shouldn't be to this extent, right? You're an expert of the Holy Emperor. a high and mighty existence. Ah, your performance is too out of control. Jun Moxie's white robes fluttered in the wind as he stepped out from the crowd. His mouth was filled with ridicule, but the corners of his mouth were curled up in a cold smile, and his eyes were filled with a cold glint. Jun Moxie, could it be that you're that evil monarch? Hai Wuya sucked in a deep breath and stepped forward, blocking in front of Zhang Mubai. He could only laugh bitterly in his heart. At this moment, he only wanted to say, what a blunder! Compared to this young man in front of him, even the legendary free and natural physique was nothing. If a person with the free and natural physique could cause the holy emperors to fight over him until their heads bled, then wouldn't this person be able to cause all the other experts to throw their lives away? You must be joking. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. Are you from the illusory ocean of blood? The holy emperor of the boundless sea? That's right, it's me. Hai Wuya looked at him and smiled faintly. Jun Moxie, this old man would like to ask, are you already at the holy emperor realm now? Jun Moxie flicked his sleeves and smiled casually. This young master's luck has always been pretty good. I don't know how I managed to reach my current realm, but it's mostly just luck. Compared to Senior's tireless and bitter cultivation, this young master can only say that I'm ashamed. These words were said politely and humbly. But to have such a shocking cultivation at such a young age, how could it be luck? Ashamed? The ones who should be ashamed are us old fellows. Compared to young Master Jun's cultivation speed, these old fellows are really too ashamed to show their faces. Hai Wuya laughed bitterly and said, according to this old man's knowledge, young Master Jun has only just turned 18, right? An 18-year-old holy emperor, a person who has never existed in history. In front of young Master Jun's achievements, from ancient times until now, countless outstanding figures have lost their splendor. This kind of achievement is not only unprecedented, it's also unparalleled. I believe that even if the Nine-Nether First Young Master was here, he would also be ashamed of his own inferiority. Jun Moxie was silent for a while and said, Holy Emperor of the Boundless Sea is praising me too much. This young master's personal achievements may not be ordinary, but compared to the Holy Lands, it's still far from it. The three Holy Lands are truly filled with talents, and their strength is unparalleled. This young master had to flee for his life from the Holy Lands several times, narrowly escaping death several times. I'm very familiar with the prowess of the Holy Lands, and I'm filled with admiration for them, and will never forget them. Everything that happened here is truly a miscalculation on the side of the Holy Lands. Sowing enmity with young master for no reason is the biggest mistake that the three Holy Lands have made in the past 10,000 years. Hai Wuya let out a long sigh, his expression filled with endless regret. Shaking his head, he said sadly, if I had the chance to do it all over again, this old man would definitely try his best to prevent us from becoming enemies with a talent like young master. This old man would also do his best, no matter the cost, to be on good terms with young master. Whether it was the tone or the tone of his words, they were all incomparably sincere. Anyone who heard it would be able to tell. These words were truly from the bottom of his heart. Jun Moxie said quietly, it's a pity. In the affairs of the world, there is no such thing as if. The so-called if is just a kind of useless imagination. That's right. Young master's words are extremely true. Hai Wuya raised his head solemnly and said, this old man has lived in seclusion in the Heaven Saint Palace for 300 years and never thought that there would be such an outstanding person like young master in this world. In the path of Xian cultivation, there's always been no seniority, and those who have reached the peak are the teachers. Young master may be young, but your cultivation is comparable to this old man's. But this old man has lived for hundreds of years, so today I will put aside my pride and ask you a question. Before Hai Wuya finished speaking, he actually took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Then he slowly opened them again, as if using all the strength in his body, and said word by word, if the three Holy Lands can apologize to young master and pay a corresponding price, I wonder if young master is willing to come to an understanding with the Holy Lands, to bury the hatchet and end this senseless slaughter? Between our two sides, is there still any room for reconciliation? Haiwuya said in a low voice. With his status, saying these words was already tantamount to humbling himself. Is there still any room for reconciliation? Jun Moxie silently repeated these words. Suddenly, a faint smile appeared on his face. This kind of smile was very mocking, with a faint sense of mockery. With a hint of mockery in his voice, he slowly said, "Senior High, I believe that you are not saying these words because you are afraid of death. On the contrary, just based on the fact that you can say these words, it is worthy of the word respect. That's because you're saying such words from the bottom of your heart, because of the war for seizing the heavens. Although you did not say it clearly, but I understand. And also respect." Jun Moxie said sincerely, "It's just that it's a pity it's all too late. I believe Old High understands that from the start. Jun Moxie, never had any intention of taking the initiative to become enemies with the three Holy Lands. I really did not think about it at all. Just a year ago, I did not even know that the so-called peak of the three Holy Lands actually existed in this world. But today, at this very moment, I can no longer turn back." Jun Moxie sighed and said in a low voice, "Now that time has changed, it is no longer you guys who want to target me, but I will not let you guys off. Today's decisive battle is just the beginning. There are no absolutes in this world. There are no grudges in this world that cannot be let go," Haiwuya said earnestly. Jun Moxie's understanding caused this holy emperor of the illusory blood sea to feel a myriad of emotions, and he was even a little touched. He took a step forward and said passionately, "Our Heaven Saint Palace can make the decision. No matter what grudges there are, we can let go of everything and focus on the war for seizing the heavens. Put the lives of the world first. If you guys had stopped this matter half a year ago, or even 3 months ago, and let both sides come to an understanding, perhaps it would really be the best of both worlds. Unfortunately, it is not possible now. As the saying goes, things have changed, and time has changed. This matter, your Heaven Saint Palace is no longer able to make the decision." Jun Moxie smiled and said, "The one who can make the decision now, the one who has the initiative, is no longer the three Holy Lands, but me. And only me, that's all. Also, Old High, if I really listen to you, I'm afraid that within half a year, the 300 people here will all turn into corpses. There will be no exceptions. I believe you can understand what I'm saying. What you guys want is destruction, and what I want now is the same as all of you." Haiwuya sighed and wanted to say more, but he heard a voice beside him say, "Jun Moxie, you're really too arrogant. You've just achieved success, and you're already speaking so incoherently. Let me tell you, no matter what achievements you have now, or what forces you have, in front of the three Holy Lands, there is only death for you. In this world, no one can protect you." The one who spoke was Jean Mubai. Brother Jean. Haiwuya had never imagined that Jean Mubai would jump out at this moment, and he couldn't help but call out in a low voice. Brother Jean's words may be inappropriate, but the logic is not wrong. Brother Hai, our side and Jun Moxie's side really have no way to turn things around, and we're already in a situation where we won't rest until one side is dead. Hiji Chio sighed and said, "The Jun family has already been forced into a corner by us, and the Tianfa forest is no longer the same because of us. There are also several lives involved, and a debt of blood can only be settled with blood. Even this Jun Moxie, although he was lucky enough to survive, the process was also very dangerous. And this is only the other side's losses. As for the Holy Land's losses, we've already lost over 1,000 lives. How are we going to settle this debt?" Hiji Chio sighed heavily and said, "Among the 1,000 people sacrificed, the lowest cultivation is at least at the level of a superior supreme. Furthermore, there's also the king of Hermitage, Missouri Wudao's younger brother, Mo Xiaoyao. I believe that even if the Heaven Saint Palace comes forward to mediate, this hatred is not hard to resolve. So today we can only fight." Jun Moxie grinned. His teeth were snow white, like an ancient beast bearing its fangs. Chapter 878. Hai Wuya smiled bitterly and said, "Last time in the Tian Fa forest, he was only a third-level venerable. Although he still shocked us, his strength was not enough to enter our eyes. Now, he already has the strength to stand on equal footing with us. It's only been 2 months. My old friends, do you really not understand what this means?" He Chiu said expressionlessly. "No matter how much of a genius he is still an enemy. Although there is nothing we can do about this, we can only face it. As for geniuses, we must do our best to eliminate them before we have the ability to control them. Only then will we not cause more trouble. Time, fate, the will of the heavens plays tricks on us. We can only adapt to it." Hai Wuya sighed and turned to look at Jun Moxie, saying solemnly, "Young Master Jun, regarding today's result, this old man is truly regretful. Looks like today's battle is unavoidable. This old man has something in his heart that cannot be said without saying it. So, I will say it first. Please speak." Jun Moxie nodded lightly. Da Xiao still had some respect for this old man in front of him. "In this battle, we will use all means to destroy Young Master, no matter the cost. If an enemy like Young Master is allowed to live in this world, it will be enough to make anyone unable to eat or sleep in peace. To the 3 holy lands, it will be like the end of the world." Hai Wuya said bitterly, "To personally destroy a genius who keeps on creating miracles, such a despicable act was actually done by this old man. This really makes this old man feel sad." "Likewise, what old Hai said is also what I wanted to say," Jun Moxie said calmly. "Just like Senior Hai, this young master will also use all his strength, using all means to obtain the final victory of this battle. This is a decisive battle. There is no need to explain this point. Life and death are up to fate. Riches and honor are up to the heavens." He laughed and said, "Old Hai's frankness makes this young master very happy. In the Holy Lands, there are many despicable and treacherous people, but there are also a few heroes. Even though we are enemies, this young master will not hide his admiration and admiration. There are many iron-blooded heroes in the Holy Lands. Oh, to be able to cause young master to feel admiration and admiration, even if I have to go to the netherworld today, my heart will be greatly comforted. I wonder who the other people are?" Hai Wuya asked with interest. "The heavens have no justice. The earth has no justice. Ning Wuqing has no mercy. Ning Wuqing is one of them. There's also the unfettered venerable Mo Xiaoyao. He's also a worthy opponent." A trace of nostalgia appeared on Jun Moxie's face as he said, "But this young master still doesn't understand. There are many heroes in the Holy Land. Why is it that once they enter the Holy Land, too many people lose their original perseverance and become obsessed with the interests of the Holy Land? Why is it that the original right and wrong in their hearts become confused and they can't control themselves?" Jun Moxie's words carried a hint of mockery and even a hint of sarcasm. It was also an unintentional remark, but in Hai Wuya's heart, these words were like a sudden clap of thunder. Hai Wuya's originally tall and straight body suddenly trembled, and his expression changed greatly. He actually took a step back. Jun Moxie's unintentional remark actually made him understand one thing. For many years, a hazy barrier had finally been broken at this moment. All the experts that the Holy Land recruited who were above the level of supreme martial artist were continuously heading towards the Holy Land. But when everyone arrived at the Holy Land, they made this person feel the huge gap between them and the others in the Holy Land. From the body, from the heart, from the spirit, all aspects of the person were continuously dealt heavy blows, until this person's originally great pride in the secular world was slowly erased, little by little turning into the past, a laughing stock, and then starting all over again from the Holy Land. This series of methods was extremely vicious, but it had a nice-sounding name: Nirvana Rebirth, Breaking and Succeeding. Thus, Many people woke up from that heavy blow and once again entered into a frenzied state of cultivation, working hard to raise their own strength. Thus, the strength of the Holy Land grew rapidly step by step. But there were even more people who were directly disheartened by the blow and directly exposed their most original nature. A great hero that was originally renowned in the secular world would actually lose all confidence, pride, and dignity in the Holy Land and become a lowly person like a ruffian. Every year, no matter what level, there would always be such people who would appear and then be eliminated, demoted to the outer forces of the three Holy Lands. From a certain perspective, this force was the cannon fodder of the three Holy Lands, a hired thug, Nirvana rebirth. Breaking and succeeding, of course, was necessary, and it was extremely effective. Only by passing through this stage could one truly touch the level of a true expert. It could be said that this stage was extremely necessary, and because of this, in these thousands of years, no one had ever doubted it. But this method was not the only one, because there were countless other gentle methods that could also achieve this goal. This kind of method was even more destructive to a person. Becoming a tycoon was very easy. But to knock this tycoon from the peak of success into the abyss and then slowly climb back up, in this world, there are not many people who could do it. Even if no arrangements were made, among those newcomers who had just entered, which one of them was a mediocre person? As long as they saw the profound Xian techniques of the seniors here, as long as they had the heart, how could they not know to work hard? But the greatest benefit of this method was not the so-called Nirvana rebirth, breaking and succeeding, but to completely shatter the original confidence and pride of these people, crushing their spirit and spirit, leaving a permanent mark of the three Holy Lands in the depths of their souls. Everything was done with the interests of the Holy Lands as the most important. Furthermore, there was also the biggest excuse in the world, which was also supported by the highest level of righteousness. For the sake of the world, for the future of mankind, the war for seizing the heavens. Therefore, everyone was willing and had no regrets. Without pride and confidence, it was equivalent to pulling out the backbone of these people and cutting off their path of retreat. After that, wouldn't they still be able to need them however they wanted? So those geniuses of the pugilistic world, peerless experts, the moment they entered the legendary Holy Lands, it was equivalent to a bunch of walking corpses that could only talk. Thinking about it, Hai Wuya actually felt his hair stand on end, and a sense of fear arose in his heart. If this was really the goal, then this was too scary. If the legendary three Holy Lands, the highest realm of Xian continent's Xian techniques, was directly a place where humanity was completely obliterated, a place of tragedy. What they were after was only the interests of the three Holy Lands. Then, what were the interests of the three Holy Lands? Could it be that there was a huge conspiracy behind all of this? Or, Hai Wuya stood there in a daze, completely not hearing what Ji Qiu was saying beside him. It was just that he had been thinking about this matter, and in this instant, there was only endless confusion in his heart. Whether it was a moment or a long time, Hai Wuya only felt someone pushing him, and he raised his head in shock, only to see Ji Qiu standing in front of him. He couldn't help but ask blankly, "What is it?" Ji Qiu looked at him deeply, a complicated expression in his eyes. "Brother Hai, the final battle is imminent. No matter what it is, we'll talk about it after everyone returns. Here, there are still over 30 brothers. Whether they live or die, this burden is all on the shoulders of the two of us." Hai Wuya's heart shook, and he instantly came to his senses. He hurriedly agreed, but a thought rose in his heart. If this old man is lucky enough to survive, I'll definitely investigate this matter thoroughly. The legendary three Holy Lands definitely could not become someone's tool. On the other side, Jun Moxie had a bright smile on his face as he turned his head and said something to Mei Shuyan. Mei Shuyan's expression was extremely solemn as she nodded her head repeatedly. "Young Master Jun, since today is the final battle, then how should we fight?" Since young master calls yourself the evil monarch and has led everyone here, I'm sure you already have a plan. Young master, please state your plan. Hiji Chiu raised his voice and said. In the time that he was speaking, an exceptionally desolate atmosphere had already gathered in the air. Hiji Chiu's expression had also become exceptionally bleak, and the once gentle spring wind in the sky had also instantly turned cold and forlorn. The vast world was filled with a sense of loss. 10,000ly sorrowful autumn. This was Hiji Chiu's signature move. Before the battle had even begun, he had already fully unleashed his unique domain. Although both sides had not truly entered a state of battle, the current him was already fully focused on preparing for battle, ready to strike at any moment. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyin exchanged a look. Mei Shuiyin said softly, "Do you intend to fight a chaotic battle or a continuous battle? Do you want to end the battle quickly or?" Jun Moxie chuckled and said, "Our overall strength far surpasses the other side. Using numbers to overwhelm us is the correct way. However, Luo Yun and the rest have borrowed the power of the spirit stones and celestial milk to forcefully raise their strength. Right now, their cultivation is unavoidably unstable. Today's battle is an extremely good opportunity to sharpen their blades. Let these people in front of us help us sharpen our blades. Thus, a chaotic battle is not advisable. Even if it is to be a chaotic battle, it will only happen at the last moment. Furthermore, if it is a chaotic battle, those few holy emperors will definitely cause a terrifying amount of damage to our low-level forces in order to cover everyone's escape. This is something that you and I cannot endure, and are even more unwilling to endure." "Oh, then you intend to fight one-on-one?" Mei Shuiyin furrowed her brows and said, "However, although the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer have forcefully raised their strength to this level, they are still lacking in high-level battle experience. If it is a one-on-one battle, it is inevitable that there will be casualties. Not only will it not achieve the effect of sharpening our blades, it will instead harm our strength. If we set it as a battle of gentlemen, then it will not be the purpose of this battle. Regarding this, I have my own ways." Jun Moxie winked and said, "Just wait and see." After saying that, Jun Moxie turned to Hiji Chiu and said, "Holy Emperor He, in today's battle, we have the advantage in numbers. If we win with numbers, it will be an unfair victory. Even if everyone dies, we will not be satisfied in our hearts. Thus, this young master has considered for a while and suggested a method of battle that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.